So it looks like the lumber prices are continuing to fall. Not a surprise. I mean, if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, I said that this was going to happen, and yes, it's continuing to occur. And this is a time of season in which that you would typically not think that lumber prices would be coming down, but going up, because considering that we're going into the building season. But things aren't normal. This isn't a normal market. This isn't a normal economy anymore, and things have changed quite dramatically. I have put a link down in the description for you guys to an interview with Jamie Dimon. Not that I really am too trusting of Jamie Dimon or anything he really has to say, but it's quite interesting when you think about the stimulus that has been injected into the economy over the last couple of years and how that relates to the hangover that we're about ready to feel when you use a party analogy. Now, I have related to the economy and debt to drugs and addiction many times. And a lot of people say, well, I just can't relate to the alcohol addiction economy debt scenario. Like they just don't see that kind of thing. They never really experienced what it's like to be addicted or, have this overwhelming feeling of like being overpowered by something beyond your control. And that's really what it comes down to, because a lot of people, they really need this debt. Like they need debt to survive. Like if they don't have access to ever increasing amounts of it, their whole livelihood is going to come undone. And that's essentially what they consider a zombie corporations or zombie people. I mean, either way, that's the way it goes down, is that you end up with like too much debt and you just can't handle it, or you just don't have access to it anymore and your life becomes miserable. Well, if you use like the party analogy on it, that's really what happened here, is because everybody was like having a really bad time, right? This is like as the pandemic is kicking in and the government needs to do something about that, so they use the stimulus. And it's no coincidence that they use the word stimulus for this, because it's very much like a stimulant. Like if you got a hit of cocaine or something, I mean, all of a sudden you're going to be like full of energy and ready to go because, you got this drug inside of you. Well, that's very much like the stimulus package that was injected into the economy. It gets everybody all lit up and they're all excited about it. The only problem with it is just like anything else out there, once it wears off, you're hung over and there's pain that needs to be felt from it. And so unless you have ever increasing amounts of stimulus injected into the economy, meaning that you're just going to be like high forever, then at some point you have to experience what it's like to sober up. And sobering up is very hard to do, especially if you have become accustomed to the stimulus, right? To the drug intake. You get to a point where your alcohol or drug intake is now so frequent and so common that it becomes the basis for your consciousness. Like you don't know how to think without it. Like, I mean, I've gotten to the point where I have a caffeine-based consciousness because I consume so much damn caffeine all the time. And that if I don't have caffeine in me, I don't think the same way. So guess what? I got caffeine, right? Because I need to go out here and be able to spit this stuff out here. So I'm not proud of the fact, but it's a very easy way to kind of relate to what's happening with the stimulus packages into your own personal life and how you have to deal with addiction. Same thing. So now when they turn the stimulus off, and it's actually been turned off, the stimulus, but they still have incredibly accommodating conditions, right? Interest rates are still very low. They are getting more difficult to take out loans. Interest rates are going up, so payments are getting higher, which is starting to cause some pain to the people, but it's barely started. I mean, you think about it. Everybody is feeling a lot of pain right now, and yet they have barely even come to the point where they're no longer accommodating the economy, and yet people are feeling pain. So just the sheer idea that they're going to start taking the drugs away is now causing the pain, and that will actually happen to somebody who's addicted. Like, you could have a pile of beer on the table and you can tell them, hey, once this beer is gone, that's it, it's all gone. And when it gets about halfway to being gone, people will start stashing beers because they're worried about them not being able to have that stimulus. And that's the same thing. People are going to get worried about it, start getting antsy and aggravated, and then pretty soon they're going to start getting angry when they don't have access to it at all. And that's where you really have to start, being cautious of what's gonna occur. Anyway, that's kind of the the idea of what I feel is probably going to be occurring. And if you go and you watch that interview with Jamie Dimon and you think about the party analogy, it really makes a lot of sense. One of the other good analogies that I remember after I had seen that, after I watched that video, was the farmer and the ducks. Do you remember this one? It was in the Creature from Jekyll Island. It was in that. There was a story inside of that, and it's kind of an older story anyway, but it's really good because it's a neat analogy when you think about it. Because when you think about like the bankers and them issuing out credit to the people, and now the people, they go and they get this credit, and then what do they do with it? They go and they build and buy these most beautiful things out there, right? And then they start putting their efforts towards paying these things off. Well, what happens after they build this house on credit and they're trying to pay this thing off and they can no longer make the payments on it, right? You know, tough times in the economy, they can no longer make the money that they once did, they can no longer make the payments on it. Well, those houses go into foreclosure or something, you know, forces them to have to sell that house off. Well, a lot of times if you're in a really bad economy and they're going into foreclosure, the value of these homes and these things that people have purchased and bought on credit, all these big, beautiful things, they start dropping in price. And the people who have the cash, like the rich elite, they just go out there and start buying this stuff up for super cheap, you know, for pennies on the dollar. It's basically going there and harvesting all this good stuff that people have built off of credit. So credit is kind of like the seeds and time to like grow the garden, and then the recession, that's like the harvest time for like the ultra rich. That's when they go in there and they just take all that good stuff that you had purchased and tried to build on all that credit, and they just go and take it for pennies on the dollar, and then you suffer with the consequences from it. So when you think about the farmer and the duck analogy, it's pretty good because it really falls in line with that. Because the way the story goes is that this farmer, he has this pond full of ducks, and no matter how hard he tried, he can never catch these damn ducks. They would always, like, you know, be too quick for him and fly off or whatever. So he always had, like, you know, issues trying to catch these damn ducks, and he so wanted them to eat them, you know. Well, he got the idea that he would start feeding these ducks, and so he would feed them every day. He would put, like, you know, a bunch of corn along the edge of the pond, and these ducks would go over there and eat this corn. Well, they got to the point where they were kind of expecting the corn, and the farmer would just feed them every day, just like usual. And these ducks, they got pretty happy with this, you know, thinking, geez, you know, we really don't have to go anywhere to try and find food. This farmer's just giving us food. And so these ducks, they really kind of even just stopped flying and just ate this corn and just hung out there at the pond. Well, pretty soon they were so fat that they couldn't fly south for the winter, so the farmer built them a little shack for them to be in. And so these ducks, you know, they were pretty cool, thinking wintertime, we're fat and happy, we got this nice little shack to be in, and they couldn't fly away anyway. And so all winter long, that farmer had a nice, beautiful, fat duck dinner all winter long because the ducks couldn't go anywhere. So this is kind of the same analogy, which you got to think about. It's just like once you get to a point where you're so debt saturated that you can't do anything, you're like one of them fat ducks, and you're about ready to be harvested. Okay? Pretty interesting analogy, huh? Hey, hit the like button, guys. We got 470 you in the live stream right now, and if we hit the like button, we'll get more people into the comment section and watching the videos. It starts spreading the YouTube will start spreading the algorithm around for us. All right, so what do we got here? I bet those ducks would be got with dynamite works with a long range detonator. Yeah. I guess you could take them out. Thanks for your time, Yui. No problem, Kyle. I enjoy being out here and talking with you guys. It's one of my favorite things to do. Great analogy. It is a good analogy, isn't it? When you think about both the party, you know, using like credit and thinking about it like a drugs or alcohol or something, it really makes a lot of sense to the people who become addicted to credit. And then again, with the duck analogy and the farmer, I mean, still getting fat and happy off of this credit and then not realizing you won't be able to be mobile. You can't go anywhere and you're going to be, you know, you're a sitting duck, right? Thank you very much for the likes, guys. Thank you very much. All right. You and Schiff are my go-to. Well, thank you. Yeah. Well, that's a big honor to be like, to be up there with the same level as Schiff on your list, because he has been one of the most influential Economist in my learning as far as what I was doing my research. I was going to Peter Schiff on a regular basis to learn as much as I could from his words of wisdom when it comes to the economy. I cannot give him enough credit. Um, and I look forward. I think he's going to be down there at the Rebel Capitalist event in Florida here in a couple of weeks. So I'm looking forward. Hopefully, I get to meet him. And I'm looking forward to meet everybody down there. I mean, Doug Casey and Brent Johnson and Jeff Snyder and a bunch of the people that I had already met down there, like Joseph Wang and Lynette Sang. I mean, it's just some incredible group of people. So I am so looking forward to being down there and hanging out with those guys. All right. Awesome presentation. Much respect. Oh, thanks. Let's see here. Similar story. The wild and free pigs of the Okefenokee Swamp. Well, I'll have to look into that one. Missed out on a house listed for 109, dropped 100,000, kept watching. Wanted to make a 80,000 off, was at 70,000 and sold before I could get the cash. Huh. Bummer. Yeah, I hear there's a lot of really good deals starting to come up, and I mean, not that I could afford to do it, but I went and talked to the mortgage broker again just to say, hey, where are we sitting on mortgages? Like, if I came across like this really good deal on like a duplex or something, like how much money would I have to have in order to buy, and he was just like, dude, you're going to need so much, So, I don't know, we'll figure it out. All right. Fed only controls demand, not supply, UE. That was a great video the other day. Thank you. Yeah, like I said, I try to put these videos out straight from like my true beliefs. I am not going out there and listening to a lot of other economists and trying to mimic what they are saying or parroting what they are saying. All this stuff that I come up with on my videos really comes from my own thoughts and the things that I'm researching and reading. And yesterday's video, I caught a little bit of flack from it because, from being like this fear mongering kind of thing without really a whole lot of like evidence to back up what I was saying. But it was really pretty good because Economic Ninja on his channel put out a video that was very similar in nature to mine, but he had all the evidence with it, so it just really backed up a lot of what I was saying anyway. So if you were looking for evidence towards what it was that I was saying, take a look at Economic Ninja's video from, I think it was yesterday that he posted it. It was really good. If I go and find a link for it, I'll put it in the description of this one after I post the video. But yeah, I mean, this stuff is happening, guys. I mean, once you have learned, taken on a pretty good grasp of the economic conditions, and you kind of take on the theory that you have, and I mean, obviously, you can find the evidence that you need when you're looking for it. But when you're just trying to be an observer of the conditions and you come up with like, this idea, not necessarily the idea, but you just have this feeling, you have the sense, you're seeing like shortages of food and energy, and you don't know, but you have a really good feeling of what it is that's going to occur from this. I put out that video. I'm not trying to be like, somebody who's just trying to scare the shit out of you for no reason. I'm just trying to let you guys know this is truly how I feel, and that if you are any kind of feeling along the same lines, you might want to take preparations now. I'm having a hard time talking. Maybe I've had too much coffee. Thank you very much for the super chats. Let's go back and look at those real quick. Economic Stalker, thank you so much for the $10. Very much appreciated. I have a hard time saying your name. Tiago? Hey, Yui, have you checked out Jeff Booth yet? Everyone watching you should listen to him. Keep fighting the good fight. Jeff Booth. I haven't, but I will. I will go and check that out this afternoon. So, his Chevy S10 pickup today. Yeah, the Toyota actually has a flat, so I got to go and deal with that here in a little bit. That's actually why I've been driving the truck, because I just didn't want to take the car into the shop to go get the tire replaced. I'm lazy like that, I guess. The repo man picked up the Corolla. No, the repo man did not pick up the Corolla. There's no repo man in my life. There's nothing to I mean, well, I guess there's the house, but there's nothing in my life that's on credit. So let's see here. Boy, you guys are moving. Okay, here. Housing prices down, interest rates up. It's coming with you, like it or not. It's time for housing capitulation. End of statement. I hope you have reserved funds to pay your mortgage. Simon. Well, not to talk too much about my personal affairs, but yes, I do have emergency fund that I am building up in case of an emergency of such nature. Still questioning whether or not we're going to see a major downturn in the housing market. I mean, inventory, although is starting to rise, is still incredibly tight, and there's still a huge demand for these houses out there. But yes, the deals are starting to show up. I mean, just like the comment earlier about $100,000 coming off of a house, that seems quite extreme, but it's not so much that I haven't seen something similar natures around here. But like, when you see a $650,000 house and they drop $50,000 off of it, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. Um, but the prices are coming down, and I'm seeing that a lot more frequently taking place out there. And the inventory levels do seem to be coming up as well. Now, I am just searching my own local area because I tried to observe as close to myself as possible, like just in my surrounding areas. If I can see those conditions changing and then I hear about it happening on a nationwide scale, then yeah, usually that's probably the case. It's one of the ways that I was able to pick out the retail coming, the retail sales dropping so dramatically, working the counter. I mean, I said it 2 months ago and people were like, well, that's crazy. And then here it is. No, at Target and Walmart, they're all proving it that there is definitely a slowdown in retail sales happening. So anyway, 700 of you. My goodness, so many of you. Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Lumberjack Landlord. Oh, man, we were supposed to hook up and talk. I'm sorry. I got so much going on, brother. I apologize. We were supposed to talk, and I totally spaced that out. Appreciate you sharing truth, my man. Keep on keeping on. Look forward to our next time together. Absolutely. Everybody go check out Lumberjack Landlord's channel. He does a great job. We've done a few interviews together. Super nice guy. And I mean, just talking with him a few times from what sounds like pretty humble starting out. Like, he was like a young guy, had, like issues as far as trying to get like an apartment and stuff like that. And it was just like, man, I am sick of this. I am not going to deal with this anymore. He bought the place and then decided that he was going to become a landlord for his career of his life. And when you hear him speak, he really does care about his tenants and wants them to really enjoy their life. Like you can just tell just by the way he talks. And so, super good. God, I am just having a hard time talking today. Super good dude. Really appreciate it if you go check him out. Let's see. Inventory type because younger middle class people not moving up as quickly as previous generations, probably because money, but also think the McMansion days was a boomer thing. Yeah, and well, it's not just the personal preference of people wanting a McMansion. You also have to think like building a home, like for a builder. This is something that was like, it's kind of difficult for a lot of people to kind of wrap their heads around because like to me, I'm thinking where are all like the 1,500 square foot ranch style homes, like the starter homes, cheaply built ranch style homes. Where are these things? How come they don't bust these things out like, just hammer these things out, right? But then you get to talking to builders and it turns out that they really have to go for the most expensive house, the biggest house, the one with the most amenities that they can possibly get into it so that they can sell it for the most and get that profit, get that margin out of it. There's just not enough profit in trying to sell a little small ranch style home for, a couple $100,000 when instead you got to build these bigger custom homes for $600,000 because the profit margin that you get off of a $600,000 home is much easier than trying to snap out, bust out these cookie cutter homes for less profit. So it's kind of weird to think about, but really like an expensive home is really the only profitable home for a builder to do right now. If labor cost and material cost and land cost and permitting costs and all that stuff came down, then building ranch style homes would be a lot easier for them to do and still be profitable. Average national gas price hit $5 today. Yeah, I just noticed before I came down here to start this video that we were at like $5.69 a gallon, I think, over here at the mini mart. When I got the coffee, it was holy moly. I don't think I've ever seen gas that high, because didn't it hit like, if I remember right, it was like $5 a gallon back in what, 2000, 5, something like that. Didn't it hit like $5 a gallon back then? Maybe it was a little later, 2007, just before the great financial crisis. Okay, Glenn, thank you so much for the $10. Your ground floor economic and life analysis is always enlightening. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it, man. Like I really try to do the perspective from the ground floor, from the working class here. I mean, I studied all this macroeconomic stuff, and I originally, like, the whole idea that I was doing it for was to try and figure out how to become an investor. And I realized as I started studying the economy that economists make terrible investors. You end up just, like, seeing so many changes happening so frequently that you're not wanting to commit to any one particular, direction inside of things, because you're always looking for things that are going to change your outlook on what's going to happen. So, people ask me all the time, it was just like, how come you don't trade? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I guess I just don't have the confidence to trade. Like, I don't feel like I'm, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know why I don't trade. I mean, I could probably make a lot of money trading lumber or something. I can't wait for deflation. I wouldn't be so hopeful for that, man. It's not going to be. I mean, if you're sitting on a lot of cash and you have a decent money supply stream, like you can make money pretty easily without having like a 9-to-5 job or something like that. Your living expenses really low. Then yeah, deflation is probably going to be a pretty good place for you to be. But most people are probably going to be experiencing a very hard time in life during the deflationary scenario. It's not something to look forward to unless you are prepared for it. Most people are just not going to be ready for it at all. They're not going to know what to think when their portfolio that they had seen grow to $1 million is sitting at less than $500,000. They're going to feel like they just lost everything in their entire world. And for a lot of people, it might be that way, All right, let's see here. What's up with the coming food shortages? Yeah, that was something else that somebody had given me a hard time about, and saying, like, how can you possibly say that there's no way you can prove there's going to be a food shortage? And you're right, you can't prove it. Now, when I put out a video probably 2 years ago saying your time to prepare is gone, I was talking about the up and coming food shortages, and at the time, nobody had seen it yet. I was talking about cleared out shelves. I was talking about, people being very panicky about whether or not they were going to be able to feed their family. I was saying this 2 years ago, and I can't, like, predict the future, but when you see certain events take place, it just leads you to believe, okay, well, there very well could be a very opposite occurrence taking place. So do you remember when all the dairy farmers were dumping hundreds of thousands of gallons of milk out into a field? Do you remember how pigs were being slaughtered because they just couldn't be fed anymore because there was no place to go with them? They were just being killed off because they couldn't go to the slaughterhouses. They couldn't afford to feed them anymore. Remember that story taking place? It was 2 years ago. Okay, you're a farmer. You're a dairy farmer. Back then, you dumped out hundreds of thousands of gallons of milk. Let's take the subsidies out for a minute. Let's just pretend like you're an actual farmer who has to deal with the economy the way it is and not getting government subsidies or anything like that. Now, you just had this dairy farm that you just worked damn hard to raise these animals. You milked them, had to throw the milk away, damn near lost your farm. All right. So let's say that's the condition that you were in. How likely are you going to be the next year with no profit, right? How likely are you going to be to replenish your cows? Like, are you going to max out the amount of cows that you could farm or have on your farm after you just dumped hundreds of thousands of gallons of milk away? Are you going to replenish your cows? Or are you just going to maybe let your herd shrink down to the bare minimum that you can get away with? You see where I'm kind of getting at? If you let your herd get down to that, you're not going to produce as much milk. And if you don't produce as much milk, guess what? There's not going to be as much to buy. And that's going to be the same story going on throughout most of the agricultural situation. I mean, think about all the onions that we're throwing away, all the pigs, all the stuff, right? Well, that's just like any other industry out there. If you had to throw it all away, the next year you're not going to invest as much, and then the following season there's not going to be as much produced. And that's the problem. It's not going to be that there's not going to be food. Okay? Don't think that you won't go down to the store and find it empty. There's going to be food down there. It's just going to be so damn expensive, you're not going to be able to afford it. And that's going to be the real problem. Right? It's not food shortages in the sense that there's not going to be like stuff to buy. There'll be stuff to buy. It's just going to be so expensive nobody will do it. And that's going to be where the real food shortages are. This is what I'm saying. It's like once 50% of your income goes to purchasing food, you'll flip out. That's it. You're like, I am not going to do this any further, right? Like, I am not going to work my ass off so I can eat. And that's it. I mean, you'll lose your shit. And that's like, you can just look at other nations and watch it happen. So it's not like the United States is going to be insulated from that. I mean, it's going to happen here too. All right. You will eat the bugs. Yeah, well, whatever. I mean, I respectfully disagree. That's cool. I mean, you can totally disagree with it. I mean, and that's the nice thing about this channel is that I appreciate the disagreements. In fact, I had a really good comment on yesterday's video that was really well-written disagreement with pretty much my entire channel, and I have to say that was a very respectful comment, and I appreciated it. Not going to change the way I do things. I'm still going to be me out here. So it's just, honestly, cash is the best position. Live simple. Buy the commodity blood and Bitcoin. When the crash goes deeper, play the bounce and back to cash. Yeah, everybody's got to choose their position in which they're going to do it. Let's see. How much do you expect food prices to increase over the next 5 years? I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you where prices are going to go. I couldn't tell you how painful it's going to be. But think about it. If food prices go up, like if you're paying $20 for a gallon of milk, how many, think about the dairy farmers again. How many, you'd be loading up on animals trying to produce as much milk as you could so that you could take advantage of the $20 a gallon milk. And then what happens? You end up with a glut of food, and it goes the other way. Just look at lumber. Look at lumber for this. Right? Same exact thing. Lumber came in a very short supply in 2019. Prior to the pandemics, the entire industry was decimated on an inventory basis. COVID kicked in, even more curtailments, even more inventory shutdown or mill shutdowns and inventory depletions. And then the stimulus came out and people wiped out the lumber. It was gone. So it shot up to $1,700 per thousand. But now what do we see? Lumber's at $550 per thousand, right? Came all the way back down to 2018 prices. This is not by any stretch of the imagination a high price for lumber futures. It is very, very average price. So just think about that on the same thing with food. It's going to be a little different because lumber is more of an immediate industry where you can just go up there and start cutting trees. And now it does take a while to go from forest to lumber yard. I mean, that's a long trip that it has to take, but it can just fire up. You don't have to plant a seed and wait for it to grow in order to provide the product. It's a system that you can fire back up and get moving again. But it's the same thing. It's the bullwhip effect, and you're going to find oversupply, undersupply, oversupply, undersupply again. And right now we're going to go into a food undersupply. It's just going to happen. And then who knows, somewhere in the future we're going to have a food oversupply, and people are going to be saying the exact opposite, and we're going to be watching these farmers going bankrupt because they don't make enough money off of it. It's and then the real shortages kick in again. Housing will correct, not crash. I agree. I just don't see that scenario taking place in which we have a mass amount of foreclosures like the Great Financial Crisis had. I mean, if people were underwater on their loans, which there could be like quite a few people who do go underwater, especially those who have like refinanced their homes over the last, year or two. They may end up underwater because the house prices had gone up so much when they refinanced, and that they could come down. Yeah, that's a possibility. But for the most part, most people are probably sitting on a lot of equity, and that if they can't make the payments, they just sell the house off. And even if they took drop the price, they would probably still have equity in their house. So I just don't see where like the foreclosure thing is, like the wave of foreclosures. It could happen. I just don't see it taking place yet. And until that does, I just don't see where the inventory is going to be like this massive inventory buildup that's going to happen from it. At the same time, you got builders who are losing like confidence inside of new starts. So that's not going to really add to the inventory levels. Again, like I just don't see where that huge increase in inventory is going to take place. I could be wrong on that. If it does happen and we start seeing it, then I'll say it. I'll be like, hey, the inventory levels are beginning to rise to the point that it's no longer a hot housing market, but a downturn in the housing market. I mean, pressure relief should have happened a long time ago, so we should see a huge pressure relief coming from it. But I agree with Lumberjack Landlord. I just don't see a crash coming, not at this point. If we start going into more sovereign debt crisis, corporate debt crisis, stuff like that, that would change my scenario. That would definitely change the way I see things. And that could come. I mean, we are seeing like the signs of a sovereign debt crisis brewing, and same thing with the corporate debt crisis as well. Most likely that's going to happen outside of the United States before it happens inside the United States. And as it does happen outside the United States, it's only going to benefit the United States during that time. But don't believe me, we're not insulated from this. It's just going to be a moment. Man, over 1,000 of you. So awesome. Hey, if there's 1,000 of you watching, go hit the like button, please. There's 385 likes right now. Let's get 700-800 likes, and we'll definitely get this video moving around. I'll hang out here. We're out here for 30 minutes now. I'll hang out for another hour or so. I'm not rich, but damn, it feels good to be debt free. You know what? It doesn't matter it doesn't matter how much money you have. It really doesn't. I mean, it doesn't matter how much money you have. What it really comes down to is, like you said, being debt free because the weight is off your shoulders. But then even if you have just even a mildly good savings, it's not so much having a new car, it's the ability to be able to have a new car that really makes you feel much better about it. So like right now, I could go and buy a new pickup truck if I wanted to, but I don't want to buy a new pickup truck. I have 2 cars that run. So not wanting to buy the pickup truck because I already have them, and having the ability to buy a pickup truck almost feels as good as if you had a pickup truck. And you see what I'm kind of getting at? It's not so much the actual acquiring of it, it's just the ability to be able to do it. That's really what you want. I saw a super chat up here. Let's go check that out. Dr. Detroit, thank you so much for the $5. Could baby boomers selling their Florida or Maine properties because of inflation put extreme downward pressure on housing? Yeah, that actually could be a very logical thing that could take place, is that you have a downturn in the market that starts like panicking people. They get into a panic of like losing the value of their asset, and so before they have a chance to lose any more on it, they go to sell it, right? And so this starts causing more people to put their houses out there for sale because they don't want to see the properties fall. And that very well could be a very likely scenario to happen. I just don't know if it would be such an amount, with that theory, that it would be such an amount that it would actually cause a downturn in the housing market. I think there would have to be something else kind of significant taking place in order for that to occur with another event. I just don't think that would be a single event on its own. All right, dude looks a mix of Christopher Lloyd and a young Lance Henriksen from the Alien movie. I get a lot of you look like famous people kind of thing. Even like walking around town, I get people who they look at me and they're like, how do I know you? Of course, I mean, I'm famous for all kinds of stuff around town, right? Not infamous stuff, just I'm popular. It's so funny, this town, it is so funny walking around. They're like, "Oh, hey, I know you," and I'm like, "From the lumber yard or calling bingo or the YouTube channel. Like, how do you know me?" All right, let's move on. Where's another question here? House prices in Florida sky high right now. Yeah, they are in Astoria as well. Let's see. Being rich is having options. That's all it is. Being in debt is trying to crawl out of a well. Yeah. I totally agree. I lived in debt for a long time, like a lot of debt too, like medical debt and credit card debts. And, it's weird because after a while, you just kind of just give up. You're like, whatever, debt, bill, whatever. Just put it on the pile, put it on the bottom of the stack of stuff that I'm not going to pay. And that's kind of the attitude that I ended up having with a lot of stuff. And, it really drains on you mentally, just in general. Like you just kind of give, not just on like your finance aspect of things, but just in general, you just have like kind of like a negative look on life all around. But then that day that you are out of debt, all of a sudden, poof, like you don't look at the world the same way. All of a sudden, like people don't irritate you as much, and you take a moment to actually enjoy your surroundings more. um, you just live life differently. Debt is pressure. It's tough. It's very much like being under, again, I have to go back to drugs. I have to go back to alcohol. It's very much like being under the power of alcohol or drugs or something, or of an addiction, where you just feel this constant weight and pressure that's always on you, and pretty soon you just feel that's just the way life is, and that's just how you just conduct yourself, not realizing that there is a whole much bigger, better world out there for you to live by. And so once you're out of that debt, it's just like, man, this is a much better world to be in. Um, anyway, that was the experience I had with it anyway. All right. Debt is stress that kills. It is. I mean, it very much is. Okay. Could debt be inspiration? That is, pushes you to make more money. Um, well, I guess yeah. If you take that kind of thought to it, really it was being so deep in debt and having that huge desire to get out of debt that really drove me to try and do things that was different in my life in order to do that, right? So once I had made that decision that I want to be out of debt, I want to be sober, I want to be out of debt, I want to have like a progressing life, where I'm actually advancing. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess that was the motivation. Like maybe if I wasn't in debt and I had things going on differently, like I didn't have that pressure on me, maybe I never would have started the channel. Maybe I never would have learned. Maybe I never would have done anything as far as economics if it hadn't been for everything that had happened, like with the foreclosure of the house and all that other stuff. So yeah, maybe debt is inspirational. I mean, I never really thought about it that way. Um, Self-help through debt. Yeah. Inflation is here to stay. I'm increasing my investments, real estate debt. Um, I don't agree. I think inflation is going to very much spin around, and you are going to find a very different environment over the next couple of years. Student debt is a lifetime of enslavement. Yeah, it really is. It's difficult to try and talk to my kids about college and taking on like the idea of pursuing a degree or something like that. Because you want to be encouraging to advance in knowledge and skills and in capabilities of life, but you also don't want to set them up for failure, which is what I feel that happened to a lot of young, actually, just a lot of people in general. They were kind of given like this idea that if you take on any kind of attitude other than going to college and getting a degree, then you are somehow going to end up being some sort of worthless loser in life. And I wish they hadn't done that to a lot of people, because now they are terribly in debt and they feel like a worthless loser. And that's like, exactly opposite of what they were told was going to happen, you know? Yep, it took me 10 years to pay off my student loans. Yeah, I mean, I know people who are older than me and still have student loan debts. And I'm like, man, I cannot imagine of life of dealing with that. Like, that's your life of having this damn debt over your head. I mean, it's one thing if you like screwed up and partied and, you know, spent all your money on a credit card and you're like looking back going, man, I'm an idiot for this. But it's another thing to think, man, I spent all this time in school to earn, you know, to get this degree, to earn a bunch of money, and I'm not doing anything with this degree. You know, what good was that? You know? In fact, it kind of sets you behind because you could have been getting experience the whole time and probably use that to your advantage and getting more pay because of the experience as opposed to the degree that everybody has, you know? I mean, you're in a sea of, I mean, a flood of degrees is now like, you know, occupying the employment market. Okay, let's see here. They do have 1,500 square foot houses. They are beautiful and well built. They are located in mobile home parks. Yeah, that's true. All right. Hey, man, found you recently and love your perspectives. How do you think the upcoming crisis you've been talking about will impact mega large cap funds? That's my main investment. You know, it's going to be hard to like, I mean, a lot of people ask me for investment advice, and I am a terrible investor. I've said it a lot of times. I am more into savings and just trying to understand what it is that I feel is going to be like the next move by the Federal Reserve and their monetary policies, what their monetary policies will have for an impact on the economy. I couldn't tell you like what companies are going to make it, what corporations are going to survive, all that. Like, it's going to be very difficult for me to try and say, hey, this is the place that you should put your money towards. Once you figure it out, let me know, because I would love to find a place that I feel very confident to put my money towards. I think that a lot of corporations and sovereign nations around the world are going to go into a serious default. And I think that really when you hear about the Great Reset that's taken place, I think that's going to be like a worldwide, pretty much everything collapse, and then a move over into a digitizing, tokenizing, you know, distributed ledger system of just about everything out there. That very well could wipe out the portfolio of every single person on the planet. And the only people who have anything left are those who have the physical possessions of gold and silver, the ammunition that you may have. I mean, like, I'm not trying to be like, I always think of like the worst case scenario so that I can prepare for something like that. The chances of it actually happening in the worst case scenario are pretty slim, but I mean, if you think about it, like, it could literally wipe out the possession of every single thing that anybody had ever had that was on a piece of paper. And the only thing you have is your ability to defend what it is that you have in your physical possession. If it happens to be land, you may or may not be able to defend that. Like, you know, they may just say, nope, you're off of here. Like, we have all voted, because you live in a democracy, and we've all voted, and you no longer get to keep your land. Like, that very well could happen. Don't believe it? Just go take a look at what's happening in other nations right now. So that's really where I think, like, if you're worried about like a full-on collapse or crisis of some, then yeah, it's going to come down to you and your network and your physical skills and possessions and capabilities. That's really what it's going to be about. Protecting yourself going into the future if you want to try and do something financial, like with your money and stuff. Like, as far as I go, I like the precious metals. That's where I go. And then on a lesser extent into the cryptocurrencies, I do have to honestly say that I have more in cryptocurrencies now than I think I do in gold and silver. But that's only because it's been like, I have been getting into cryptocurrencies for pretty much like the entire time. Like, I mean, I don't even know like, when did Coinbase start up? Like, I got in a Coinbase account like 3 months. Like, I was one of the first people to ever have a Coinbase account. And, you know, I've been buying Bitcoin ever since then. I mean, sometimes, like, I went a few years where I didn't buy any, but, you know, for the most part, I buy a little bit pretty much every week or once a month. You know, lately, like over the last few months, I hadn't, because I was building up my savings again. But that's how I did it. And holy moly, I mean, there's times when my crypto portfolio looks really good. But you have to have, kind of, you have to have an iron stomach because it's volatile. And if you dump a bunch of money in all at once, you're going to go for a hell of a ride. Dollar cost averaging, it's the only way to go, especially when it comes to the cryptocurrencies. It's just too volatile to try and time. You might be a great trader who can do a lot of money, make a lot of money doing it. And there's a lot of money to be made in that kind of volatility. It's not for me. I can't do it. Because every time I try to time the market, I screw it up. So I don't try and time anything. I just buy a little bit all the time, and dollar cost averaging has worked out incredibly well for me. So anyway, that's the investment advice that I have to give. I don't give investment advice. All right, back to the bottom. Let's see here. Fear and consumption. Scared. People spend money. They want us scared. I definitely do believe they want us scared, and it's not for any other reason other than if you are living in fear, then you will never ever connect, and you will never organize, and you will never be able to topple or overthrow the government. So long as you're living in fear, they have total control over everything. The moment that you are no longer scared or in fear, then you could start connecting, you start building, and you start realizing that there is an oppressive power over you, and you're going to start doing something about it. But so long as you're in fear, you won't do anything. You'll just continue to live in the mess, and that's what they want. I mean, I've used this. I've talked about this quite a few times. What it comes down to is an inner energy within all of us. And now I'm not some crystal gripping hippie kind of thing, but everybody knows when you walk into a room, if you feel the energy in the room, like everybody's in a bad mood, you can feel it as soon as you walk in. They don't have to say anything. It's the same thing if they're happy. When you walk in, you can tell that everybody's in a good mood. That energy is within every single person. And now when you live in fear, what happens is that energy moves out to the extremities, right? So now you're into like this fight or flight mode because you're prepared. You got to either run or do something about it. So you're in this constant defensive. Well, that's a negative, right? So what it ends up doing is you're pushing out this negative energy out. And the only thing you're ever going to get back is another negative like energy coming back from that. And you will never connect with anybody because of that. If you center yourself, right, you bring it into your energy to the center, and you focus in on positive, and you focus in on happiness and love and peace and understanding, and you put out that positive energy out there, well, then positive things will start flowing back towards you. Then you can start connecting with people, and you can start developing ideas and start moving on to bigger and better things. So as long as you live in fear, and as long as they keep us in fear, there's no way we'll ever make it to that connection thing. We'll never like unite and be able to topple them. So live in fear. I mean, that's what they want. So if you're scared of the government coming down, you're scared of whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter. If you're scared of something, if you're out there going, man, I'm in fear of this, they're going to do this, you have to be worried about it. Well, then you're never going to make it. I put out the fear-mongering videos to try and get you to prepare for the food, right? But when you walk around with life, you should be walking around enjoying your life, right? You should be walking around being encouraging, polite. When you put out this kind of energy out there, you're going to get that exact same thing back. So I don't know how I ended up on that. Don't live in fear. That's what I ended up. Okay. Oh, there was another super chat. Thank you so much, Patrick, for the 1999. Very much appreciate it. The average car loan length is 72 months. Get it together and buy a Pinto with cash. Yeah, I bought this truck for $1,200. Runs pretty good, I'm pretty happy with it. I bought the Toyota for $500, so I'm less than $2,000 into these vehicles, and I don't have, I really want that new Camaro. I don't know. All right, onward. All right. What is the best case and worst case scenario for the U.S. economy? Yeah, you don't want the worst case scenario. I mean, it can get bad. total financial collapse. You know, imagine like everybody who ever thought that they had a retirement. Think of all the retirees out there who have this portfolio of like a life behind it gone. Like, what are they going to do? Like, they don't have any money for food. What are you going to do? Right? I mean, that's the worst case scenario. I mean, best case scenario, this is it, man. This is the best case scenario. I mean, this is as good as it is. And if you can't take advantage of the situation that you're in right now, then it's not going to get any better for you. I mean, this is it. There's nobody coming. Just remember that. There is nobody who's going to come and make it good for you at all, ever. Like, it's up to you to figure this out and to pursue that happiness and to pursue the advantages that you can get from what you see and you have within your grasp. I mean, there is no time in the future in which that things are going to be good. All right, don't expect it, because it's not happening. It's not ever going to happen. I mean, even if you have it good, it's hard, because you have to maintain good, and that's difficult to do. So just understand that it is an eternal struggle, and it will never be a situation in which that it's good. It will only be bad. Now, with that, take advantage of it and make your life good. I don't know why I put it like that. Thank you so much for the $100. Play bike frisbee. You didn't even ask a question, man. Thank you so much. All right, here we go. Infamous NYC, $5. Looking to buy some land for a homestead to build. I am single with minimal stuff, but I think it is good investment, especially since lumber has come down some. Yeah, I do agree with that. Like, I mean, you have to take on the idea that I'm not going to get kicked off my land. Like, once I have purchased this land, it will belong to me, and that, hopefully the government will, protect my, right to own this property. Now, if you can stand behind that and you have confidence in that, then yeah, land is a really good investment. They just can't make any more of it. I mean, there is only so much of it. And if you happen to have it in a really good location, then really that's not a bad deal. There's really, like, to me, there's buying raw land only gives you the chance to improve it. Like, you put a building on it and now you have something that's worth a lot more than what you paid for it. So buying raw land in a good location, and again, you have that confidence that your property rights will be protected. I think it's a great idea, personally. But again, you also have to be somewhat ambitious, because you're thinking, okay, well, I'm going to have to improve this land. So it's not like buying something that you don't have to think about again. I mean, you have to keep this in your mind. There's improvements that have to be done. You have to work on this and deal with it. Okay, Costco was so busy today, unusual for a weekday. Yeah. Explain Cantillon effect. Do you want me to explain Cantillon effect? Gosh, I seem to do that all the time. Jim, are you just trying to get me to say that or something? What's going on? Okay. Do you think that Canada's housing will crash? I have to say, like, I am surprised that the Canadian housing market has not come down already. I mean, this is another reason why I have to wonder about whether or not we're going to see a crash down here in the United States. When you look at like places like Canada or New Zealand, where the average house price is what, like $1 million now, or some crazy thing. Like here in the United States, if I remember right, it's like $400,000 or $350,000, something like that. But it's like half of what it is in Canada and New Zealand. So when people say, "Oh man, the house prices just can't go up any further," I'm like, you seen up north? I mean, this guy's got it up there pretty high. Same thing with New Zealand. I know there's different scenarios going on there, but still, that's like, that's pretty telling on how high house prices can go. With that being said, yeah, like I could see a lot coming out of the Canadian housing market. Now, whether or not that's going to actually happen, again, I don't know, but it seems like there's a lot of room for some pressure to come out of that, some house price moves. Moving out into the country was the best thing we have ever done. 17 forever. I believe that is a very accurate statement. I have been out in the country now for about 7 months, And I tell you, the number one thing that I like most about being out there is how peaceful it is. It's quiet, and that's nice. I don't have traffic. I don't have people, like, I don't have people screaming or yelling outside the house about, whatever it is. There, like, I can stand, let my dog out in the middle of the night, and there's nothing or nobody. The only thing you hear is a few owls and nothing. It's just like so nice. It's weird. Like, I just sit out there and just enjoy the peacefulness of it. Victor, thank you so much for the $49.99. I'm buying 6 acres in Texas, 400,000. Can sub lot 5 times. See, now there you go. See, now that's the type of like thinking that you do. You get 6 acres and then you sub it out, into 5 different lots, sell those off, probably make a good profit off of it, sub them out, build houses on them, make even more money off of it. This is the type of ambitious thing that you do. That's what raw land can provide for you if you have it. You don't even have to do it today. You can just buy the land and do this in 20 years or something like that. It doesn't, a lot of, like, for example, right over here in front of me is a place called Mill Pond. And there used to be a plywood mill that sat there, and they tore the plywood mill down, and the land was like toxic as hell. And they cleaned it all up and dumped, like, I don't know, 7 feet of sand or something on it, and then started selling the lots off. And I thought then, I'm like, man, I should buy a couple of these lots and then be the last one to own these lots. I was going to buy like 2 that would have like really good views of the river and just sit on them and not do anything and not even intend to do anything with them except for sell them now today, which now you would be making, probably 3, 4, 5 times your money off of it, and you didn't have to do anything. So I see these things occurring, but of course at the time I didn't have any money. So I see it coming up, and yeah, I mean, land's the way to go. Again, you have to have that confidence that you're going to be able to, retain your property rights on it. Rodrigo, thank you so much for the $1.99. Mid-country property prices are going nuts. Are they? Yeah, I mean, and it's gonna be hard to pinpoint because some markets are gonna be like incredible. Like, I am in Astoria, in Portland, Seattle. Like, these, they're like stupid expensive, like ridiculously expensive. And I look around, like, I just don't even understand how it is that anybody can even make it. I mean, if I didn't have the YouTube channel, I don't know how it is that I would even live in Astoria. I mean, I wouldn't. I would have had to move. You guys know this. I mean, you watch my videos from last year. I mean, it was tearing me up to try and find a place to be. And even trying to get into a house was like, it took everything I had. So places like this are going to find a reversal in the prices at some point. I mean, we're just trying to figure out how much and for how long. Canada in trouble next year or two. You think so, lumberjack landlord? Yeah, absolutely. You can really see it happening. It's going to be, a lot of it's going to have to end up being with the interest rates and how far those rates go. Because that's going to be the telling sign of like how much the payments are going to be able to be made for. Okay, boy, there's a lot of people in here today. 1,165 of you. Thank you so much for hanging out like this. What are you doing to try and preserve your wealth so that you can protect it for your kids in the future? Again, I really don't have a whole lot of places I go, right? Gold, silver, Bitcoin, cash. There is the stocks, if you want to know about the stocks that I buy, I do buy, I have a small portfolio where I buy the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF, and then the Vanguard Russell 1000 growth stocks, which both of those have just, especially the growth stocks, has done terrible. And then Altria, ticker symbol MO, and that's Anheuser-Busch Marlboro cigarettes. Again, I don't drink or smoke, but I know a little bit about addiction. So anyway, those are the places that I put my money as far as a stock portfolio goes. Preserving for my kids for the future, silver. That's the only place that I would really feel comfortable on an incredibly long term. I don't think that that's going to be somewhere where it's going to grow like an insane amount of wealth. A lot of people find that they're going to be like, they have this idea that they're going to be, some kind of millionaire off of their silver holdings. I don't I there was a time I did feel that way. I don't feel that way anymore. I feel like silver is more of an insurance policy. I use it to, have something that's outside of the third party risk. It's in your hand. It's for you to protect. So that's really like, if there was any place for my kids into the future, that's where it would be. It would be in silver. Um, I guess the other thing, like, maybe the house, like, I mean, the buying property for the kids, that would be, another place to try and preserve some of the wealth or something like that. If that was the case, then I would probably wait, to see if there is a downturn in the housing market. It's certainly no reason to try and just jump into the market right now for that, as far as preserving wealth. And then, because, the possibilities are so extreme, if your kids are really young, then cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin would probably be a nice place to go to, because, the possibilities of that going way up are pretty good. So I would split it around through that. That's me personally. But again, I don't give investment advice. I'm a terrible investor. Okay. There was another one. Here we go. $5 for the infamous NYC. People for the luxuries go to cities, become completely dependent, consume, then blame producers for their lack in life. Get out of the cities and build. Yeah, I can really see that. Being in the city really is really convenient. And then you start relying on those conveniences. And once you become reliant on the conveniences, you're left without the self-sustainability in your life, like, because you're so dependent on these conveniences that are out there. And I think that's where, the commenter was saying that if you live in the country, you're less depending on the conveniences that are out there. You're more reliant on, your self-sufficiencies that are there out there in the country. So I can see where really there's a big mindset difference that happens when you do that. Let's see here. Abo? Is that Abo? Oh, thank you for what is that, 10 euros? They really go hard since 2019. The capitalists now tell you to consume less. Think about it, how far we already are in the economic cycle, right? Well, I do have to disagree. I don't think it's the capitalists that are now telling you to consume less. I think that would be the Keynesians that are telling you to consume less. They're the ones who believe in market manipulations and conditionings, not the free market capitalists. Free market capitalists are just that. Let the free market deal with it. Rise and fall on your own merits. Just the simple fact that we even have a Federal Reserve Bank, and the stimulus packages and all the fiscal stimulus that came from it, because the central bank, that whole system just already says that we don't have a capitalistic system. I mean, that right there says there is no free market. So if you don't have a free market, then you don't have capitalism. What you have is you have crony capitalism, where you have certain corporations who will rise and other ones who will fall, not based on their own merits, but whether or not the government decides on their existence. And that is not even close to capitalism. I wish people would probably, it is easy to point a finger and blame, all right? Especially if you don't want to blame yourself for the problem. And like, you can point at anything else out there and say, there it is, that's the problem. You can see it occurring. But then if you go and look at the actual problem of it, you see that it's an actual symptom and not a problem. And the symptom doesn't come from the problem of capitalism. It comes from the government of a Keynesian thought. That's the truth of the matter. I'm sorry to break that to you, but there is no capitalism here in the United States. There hasn't been for quite some time. Now, if you want to blame capitalism, go for it, but you're never going to figure it out if you do, right? And just like me, I'm not blaming the Keynesians out there for the economic conditions of it. I'm just saying that there is no capitalism here in the United States. It doesn't exist. Period. End of story, right? Anyway, moving on. I do my best to protect me and my family and trust God to handle the rest. Yeah, I go off of my instincts. And I don't know if that's exactly the way to go about it. But you know, when you get to a point in your life where you're just like, I'm not going to take another step forward. That's it. You know that your instincts is telling you isn't going to work anymore. And really, that's where people should follow. When you say this is it, I'm not going to take another step. From wishing prices knit in actual value. From wishing pricing, not in actual value. Yeah. Let's see here. I do my best to protect me and my family. Oh, we just talked that one. Okay. Handyman business might be a capitalist business. Well, okay. What is capitalism, right? What is capitalism? It's producing the cheapest, most efficient product and getting it to the consumer as quickly as possible, right? I mean, that's it. That's really what it is. Another way you can describe capitalism is taking natural resources and turning them to garbage as quickly as possible, right? That's another way you can describe capitalism. I mean, both of those are very accurate in their descriptions of it. So when you think about like what it is to be a capitalist, yes, handyman business is a great capitalist idea, right? You see out there, you see the need for things, you know that you can produce it, you go out there and you make it happen. If you can produce it and do it cheaper and more efficiently than anybody else out there, then you're probably going to have a pretty good business, right? That's capitalism. Now, when you have a car manufacturer who employs hundreds of thousands of people or millions of people, and they are on the verge of going completely bankrupt and shutting down their operations forever, and you have the government saying, no, that's not going to really be allowed because that's just too many jobs out there. So unfortunately, you're going to have to stay in existence, right? You can't fail. You're not allowed to. And we're going to buy up a bunch of your stock with money that is belonging to the taxpayers, essentially. So we're going to use their money to make sure that you stay in existence. That's not capitalism, right? That's gone. What do you think about the billionaires that are getting mad at the crony capitalists? Example, PBD or Elon Musk. The crony capitalists want to control every part of your life to take money from us. Oh, I'm glad. Yep, and you recognize it, right? So once you see it, once you recognize it, now you condition your life in which that they don't do it to you anymore. Right? That's why you get into gold and silver. That's why you get into cryptocurrencies. That's why you're getting out of that third party or anything that has to do with them. If the people were to take the initiative to understand what it is to be a sovereign citizen, and it's not even that statement. Like I learned it from the other day from Derek, who came into the bar to say hi to me. Those two don't go together. You're either a sovereign or you're a citizen. And once you understand the difference between the two, if everybody in America understood the difference between being a sovereign and being a citizen, and they truly got that and implemented that into their lives, none of this stuff would exist. None of this government would exist. Wow, Infamous NYC, man, you're all over. Thank you so much for the $5. It's funny, the Bible says a wise woman builds up her house, but they got a bigger tax farm, more single people, less family working together. Smart. But they got bigger tax farm, more single people, less family working together. Smart. I'm not sure if I understand what the point of that one was. I'm sorry. I'm thinking I'm just missing it. Okay. Do you actually see Bitcoin as a savings or just another asset to flop in the stagflation, deflation to come? Why do you think it's going to be any better than cash in the near term? I don't think it's any better than cash. I don't think that it's necessarily a good place for savings. I save in it, but that's only a small piece of it, and I do it over time on a dollar cost averaging basis. So that isn't short term. There's nothing short term about that. So no, like Bitcoin is not a safe place for savings, even remotely close, especially on a short term. Like not even. But it does have something that is outside of the banking system completely, and it's something that you can use to interact with somebody anywhere on the planet, like as long as they have internet access. That's not any, there's nothing else on the planet that can even remotely come close to doing that other than like the current system. So yeah, I think having Bitcoin in your possession is going to be very critical going into the future. And the biggest thing about owning cryptocurrencies is securing your private keys. I mean, I have warned people about this time and time again to, if you're going to get into Bitcoin for the first time, get a small amount, $50, $100 worth, throw it around, like learn how to use it, how to send Bitcoin back and forth to different wallets, and then secure your private keys. If you don't understand what that means, learn what private keys are and how to secure, and how to secure them. Because I have lost the private keys to an Ethereum wallet that has tokens in it, and I don't even want to go and see how much it's worth right now, but it's happened to me, and I was giving warnings not to do exactly what happened to me. So I lost the last 12 digits of a private key to an Ethereum wallet that I had written down, and I can't get into it. So yeah, cryptocurrencies is definitely a place, like especially Bitcoin, is definitely a safe place to be, but not for savings, if that makes sense. All right. Wow. So many of you hanging out today. I love it. 1,135 of you, 815 thumbs up. Just absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, everybody. Yep. Remember that guy talking about saying he is the living man? Then they jailed his jailed his horse. Yeah. All right. Bitcoin is not savings. No, it's not. And I try to say that it's not savings. It's speculation. Anything. Okay, what is savings? Like savings is something that you put in and you expect to get it back, right? So like if you put $100 in, you're going to get $100 back. If you go into like a savings account in a bank, sometimes they'll give you a little bit of interest on it. So like not now because interest rates are so low. That's savings. Now, what's investing? Investing is when you anticipate on getting a return of some sort, right? You buy a rental property, you anticipate that you're going to get the rental income off of it. You buy stocks, you might get like a dividend paying stock and, you'll get a share of dividends, a few times a year. Or the company that you're investing in, is going to grow, they're going to do better, so therefore the value of the company goes up, you get the money back out of that. Those are investments. When you are speculating, when you buy gold, when you buy Bitcoin, those are speculations. Even buying like real estate, if you anticipate like flipping the property, those are speculations. You're anticipating on selling it to a greater fool. There is no way in the world that you are ever going to look at those things and call those things investments. I mean, if you do, you're either using the term wrong or you're looking at it incorrectly. Those are not investments, those are speculations, and that's the way I look at it. There is no savings. Savings is like, you're going to get your $100 back. Right? Investing is when you're guaranteed a return. Speculation is when you're going to sell it to the greater fool. And those are three different places. And you can use them all for different purposes. I mean, you can use the real estate for savings if you're savvy enough, but it doesn't mean that Bitcoin is an investment or a savings, right? It's a speculation, and it always will be. I think forever, like gold and silver will be. All right. Thank you so much, man. Infamous and NYC, you're just loading me up on the super chats. With just the father working, you can only tax half the population. Women by nature consume more resources, so it's more beneficial to promote singleness than building for your own family. The many building for the few. Huh. Yeah, I'm gonna have to take that into a thought for just a little bit to process that one too, because that's the way really life used to be, right? I mean, it was just the single income providing for an entire family who consumed everything that the family would need. Well, nowadays it doesn't really quite work like that. I mean, everybody needs to produce something in order to consume. And that's kind of funny to think about, considering that there's so few amount of people out there actually producing anything, yet they're consuming. But that just means that the people who are producing way more in comparison to what they used to do in order to provide the consumption for people who aren't producing. I'm going to have to roll that around again. Sorry, guys. I just kind of went off on that one. That's how my brain works. All right. Jaws. Yes. I love it when Jaws comes in. Thank you for the super chat. I almost missed this. When comes pressure cooking? How long will a sealed jar last? The labels at the store say 18 months. This seems short. Are they trying to get you back to buy more? Okay, how long will a sealed jar last? They say like 2 years. Like the 18 months is probably like, pretty accurate as far as like, the guarantee. But I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've eaten canned tuna fish that have been sitting in a can for like 4 years, like after, been jarred up for 4 years, and it tasted just as good as the day that we put it in the can, that we jarred it up. So you can get a lot longer than what like I think they're recommending. But yeah, 2 years is like kind of what they say. So if you are going into the canning pressure, canning food, what you want to do is rotations. You want to like, build up your stock of the canned goods that you want to do, like whether it's carrots or chicken or whatever it is that you got. And then you want to start consuming that stuff and just keep that pantry stocked with that like full on, supply of food, and just keep it rotating. I mean, it's kind of fun when you first start, like, well, look at my big stock of food here, but then you do have to eat it. You can't just sit there and look at it, and then just rotate it through. But yeah, 2 years for you, Joss. All right, what was that next one? Thank you so much, Abo, $20. Thanks for the great explanation. Hey, you're welcome. I hope I didn't like sound too offensive, man. I wasn't trying to be that way. I think that consume less started with overpopulation 60s and 70s, the climate 80s and 90s, and then Greta Thunberg, and now it's at max. So it's Keynesian, manipulating markets by manipulating consumer behavior. Yes, absolutely. And that's where like, one of the things about like the Keynesian economist out there is that they set their plan up for 100 years, right? They say, okay, we're going to do a plan that's going to last 100 years. And it doesn't really matter what happens after the 100 years because everybody will be dead, right? So anybody who is involved at the creation of the plan, they will never see it through to the end, because by the time it gets there, everybody and who is ever involved in it will all be gone. So the Keynesian model and the thought of it is like you just work everything off of, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to go any longer than 100 years. Just base everything off of 100 years because at the end of it, we'll all be dead and it doesn't matter anyway. Isn't that kind of a messed up thought? Like there is no plan for your children within that. Like your plan for your children or your grandchildren is you're on your own, make a plan for 100 years and screw everybody else. Like that's the plan. It's kind of a messed up way of thinking about it. I mean, it does work, for the sense like, it's just like, well, it's a very like, scary proposition that we go through with this plan, but then again, it's really not that scary because we don't really care if it makes it or not. We just need it to go 100 years, right? We don't need have anything like sustaining, Isn't that kind of a messed up concept? Yeah. Gosh, you guys are so generous with these super chats. I can't believe it. You guys are just amazing. Let me pick out a comment here. Okay, now is the time to buy and invest when everyone are in fear of going to cash. The old Buffett saying, buy when people are in fear and sell when people are greedy. Absolutely. You buy when there's blood in the streets. Be fearful when people are greedy and be greedy when people are fearful. This is something that they have said for hundreds of years. It's the way it's done. I do have to say, like, being in cash is something that I have, like, even during like the worst times, like being in cash to me is always like a good position to be in. Not like an extreme amount of it. Like there's sometimes you want to be in more cash and other times you want to be in less cash, but always having cash on hand is really a good place to be, because what will end up happening is that you're going to find at some point in your life an incredibly good deal comes along, and if you just present them with even half of the value of it in hand right now with cash. I don't have a lighter, I'm sorry. Yep. But if you have that cash in hand, then you're going to be able to, take advantage of that, cheap toy or the motorcycle that goes on sale, that luxury item that was up there. So cash on hand is something that I've always tried to push. So the girl out there kind of gave me a little bit of a hard time. She was staring at me over here and then comes around and asks for a lighter. Poor girl, she's always hammered. Alright. Okay, do you plan to get on Truth Social or Rumble? We'd love to follow you on those platforms too. Yeah, I really should start, moving out to other platforms instead of just being on YouTube. I just like, there's so many other places to be at one time that it's really hard to be on those other platforms and be meaningfully engaging in those things. I mean, I hate missing, like, I see a really good comment or a question from somebody and I don't find it, like, on Twitter for like 3 months or something like that. It's like, well, I kind of missed it on that one. So, I mean, it would be nice to be on these other platforms as well. I mean, I can put the content out there, but I may not be there, like, present to comment or, to be there. YouTube is just, like, it's the spot that I'm at. So I'm most engaging here on YouTube. So that's kind of where I end up being. Thank you again, Lumberjack Landlord, man. You are the best. Go check out the channel. If Uneducated Economist advice has ever helped you, or you have just enjoyed the amazing content, give the man a super chat. We need more creators like him that don't pander. Well, thank you so much, brother. That is very generous of you, and I really do appreciate it. Again, I came out here to try and learn as much as I can with economics, to try and start a conversation. I don't have anything to sell. I think that's probably one of the nice things about my channel, is that I'm really not trying to push for you guys to send money anywhere. Like, I don't have a program to sell. I hope to have a book at some point that I could try and sell you, but other than hoodies or something like that, or a ball cap, I don't really have anything to sell you guys. And I just come out here to try and just give you my thoughts and start the conversation and be entertaining as much as I can. I think I do a pretty good job of it. I mean, personally. Okay, diversify the best way you can. Yep. Gab is the only one with actual free speech and not controlled by the same type of people that own Twitter. On Gab, yeah, there's a lot of platforms I could go to. I mean, like I said, I mean, I just ended up kind of starting here on YouTube and being most active here. So, let's see. Live your life. You're cool. That's why I subscribed. Well, thanks, man. I'll give you my wife's number. Maybe you can let her know too. All right. What are your thoughts on the 10-year? Like, as far as the 10-year treasuries go? I mean, as far as like an investment goes, or just like, following it as far as like, watching the interest rates and the condition of the economy. Because the 10-year tells all. The 10-year, if you want to know where mortgage rates are going to go, if you want to know what your credit card or car loan payments are going to be going in the future, watch the 10-year. If the 10-year yield continues to rise, your interest payments on everything else that you are taking out as far as credit goes is going to go up as well. The 10-year tells all. It's everything. I mean, it's not like everything purposefully follows the 10-year. It's just the leading indicator of where interest rates go. So I don't know if that's kind of the questions that you were asking. The 2-year, 10-year, those are like the recession indicator. Those things inverted already a few months back. So like, that's like the preliminary kind of telling of a possible recession coming into the future. So that's a good one to watch as well. But anyway, I guess, I don't know. I hope that answers your question. Let's see. The game is rigged, folks. The tables are tilted. George Carlin. Yeah, Carlin. The game is rigged. And that's where, like, I think understanding the system as best you can to know that the game is rigged. And then once you kind of figure out that it is rigged and that you can kind of grasp what it is that's taking place inside of the economy and with monetary policies and what it is that they're attempting to do, you can condition your life to not be nearly as negatively affected by the actions of the Federal Reserve if you follow the economy, closely and the monetary policies. You a lot of times, I will talk with people and they will go off about inflation. They'll say something about, how bad the inflation is and what the government can do about it. And I go to engage in this conversation. I realize they really don't have any clue of anything at all. Like, you ask them about the mortgage-backed securities and they don't even understand what a mortgage-backed security is. And so it makes me wonder, it's just like, well, how can you make good financial decisions in your life if you don't even understand what a mortgage-backed security is, like, and how that conditions the Federal Reserve's balance sheet? Yeah, like, how do you do that? And they don't. They can't. There's just no way. So a lot of people are just basically flying blind, and I don't know how the hell they make it. I mean, I guess they have good financial advisors or something. Let's see here. Thank you so much, Brett, for the $10. Do you think the same families still own the Federal Reserve that started in 1913, the creature from Jekyll Island? Yep, I do. I think that there is a handful of very secretive families that are not in the mainstream for anybody to focus in and pay attention to. There's a lot of people out there who have named them out and point them out and say stuff about it. But yeah, I think that is very much the case. I think that is much controlled underneath the debt system, the banking system that we use today. I think that those families reap the benefits of pretty much the efforts of a little bit of efforts of every single person on the entire planet. It all go to those people. They are essentially the master slave owners, and we are all slaves under that system. And so long as we have that system, we will always be under that slave system due to their banking debt, whatever system they got set up for it. Sorry guys, I'm not doing a very good job describing that. Okay, Rockefellers built this house on top of native and burial site. Oh yeah. All right, let's see here. Lexus 499. God, my camera's all like glaring here. Maybe we have to move. Oh, there we go. Okay. Finally get to see a live. When do you think selling timber will make the best return the next couple of years? By the way, awesome content. Well, thank you. When do I think selling timber, like the actual trees? That's going to be a difficult one because I just don't think that timber prices are. I mean, I guess it depends on what area you're in. Like if you're down in the southern part of the United States, I think that's going to be a very difficult timber selling area to be in because there is a glut of trees down there right now. Here in the Pacific Northwest, I mean, we have more trees up here than just about anywhere else in the world, it seems like, from here to the British Columbia area. So as far as timber prices go, I don't know. Like, that's going to be a very difficult one to try and say if there's going to be like a good timing on that one. With lumber prices falling as much as they are, I just can't see the mills paying top dollar for trees right now. And when you have like a slowdown with the home builders and stuff, I don't know. It's probably going to be a while before you start seeing timber prices going up. At some point, you're going to find that all this inventory gets wiped out, right? I mean, if the mills are in curtailment and there are still homes being built, I mean, they will get through that lumber. And at some point, there's going to be a tight inventory and the prices will go back up. The future prices will, and the mills will fire back up again. So it's the bullwhip effect. But at that time, when the lumber prices do go back up, I'd imagine that the timber prices will be going up too, because the mills are going to be paying higher prices for it, or looking to get logs. So anyway, I don't know if that made sense. I'm kind of getting to babbling now. I don't know. Let's see here. How do you say that? Enriku? $20. Thank you so much. Thanks for the info. Well, thank you for the $20. I really appreciate it. All right, what's up with LVL beam prices? Yeah, the LVL, anything that's engineered like that, so LVL, that stands for laminated veneer lumber. Easiest way to describe it, it's like plywood made into a beam. Does that kind of make sense? Like it's a bunch of veneers that are glued together until you have like a bigger beam. Used a lot in the floor systems of houses. Most floor systems now in houses are all engineered products like, I-joists, header, glue lam headers, stuff like that, OSB flooring. And the engineered products like the OSB, the TGIs, the LVLs, the glue lamps, all that stuff has come up in short supply. Now, I have heard of places in the nation where it became like they could not get their TGIs or their LVLs or glue lamps. Like it became like unavailable. I have not experienced that. Now, I have talked with some of the other guys where, like, the idea of allocations, meaning, like, you're not going to be able to get particular parts or pieces, or maybe not be able to get enough of a particular item, has been mentioned. And I heard of other people having issues. I personally have not experienced that yet. Now, I'm not doing quite the same that a lot of the other guys are doing. But anytime that I have ever gone to order a glue lamp or LVLs or TGIs or anything like that, I have never had a problem getting them. There was times like I call up and like, hey, I need this glue lamp, and I'll be put on hold. So like they go and research and whether or not they can actually sell it to me. Like, because I think there's allocations going on saying that if they don't have enough to give to their better customers, then I wouldn't get my part or my piece. But that didn't happen. Like I've always got everything that I've ever ordered. The prices are going to go up on that stuff, and like OSB right now, I have a feeling that we're going to see plywood and OSB prices continue to move up. There was a major mill, like Tolko is not some small mill. This is a major producer of OSB, and they are in an indefinite shutdown, which already is in short supply. So I mean, even though the lumber future prices are coming down, the sheathing, I think, is going to be a little bit more difficult to try and find that same price dropping that lumber is going to experience. Anyway. Okay. I miss my S10. Yeah. This is a good little truck, I'm pretty happy with it. So I'm glad I purchased it. What does your crystal ball tell you about tomorrow's CPI report, the Consumer Price Index? I think we're going to start seeing the inflation coming out. I mean, you're not going to see like I mean, everything has gone up so much, right? So when you see like inflation, when they're talking about inflation running, going from 2% to 5% to 8%, if it goes from 8% down to 6%, that's better news, right? It's not as much inflation pressure. It's still inflation, but not as much inflation pressure. So that's what I'm expecting to come from the CPI report, is that the inflation isn't going to be up as high as it once was, but it's still going to be up there, right? I mean, prices are still quite elevated. Gas prices are going to keep it elevated. It's not like, wages are it's not like there's a whole bunch of unemployment going on out there. There's plenty of jobs. So that's going to keep like the wages up. That type of inflation is really where the pressure continues to push into the economy, is through like energy costs and wages and stuff like that. Once that starts to come down, yeah, it's done. Inflation's going to come out. It'll be out. But right now CPI is probably going to still be fairly high, but not nearly as high as it once was. The CPI is above 8.5. I get $1.60 an hour raise. Wow. I wish I had a job like that. Inflation, real rate, 20%. Fed could lie, miscalculate about core CPI, and make it a point lower. Yes, they can, can't they? In fact, we learned from the FASB 56 that all the information that we get from the economy is 100% filtered, and that none of it is actually what they say it is. I mean, they have two books. I did a video on this. It was a long time ago, but yeah, FASB 56. And they pretty much stated that they are going to give you fraudulent numbers. Like here's the numbers, and then here's the numbers that we're actually going to show you. We have to keep these numbers secret for, national security purposes, but don't worry, these numbers that you see, they're going to be accurate enough for you to make all your investment decisions and everything else. So you don't have to worry about the numbers you see, even though they are fake. Okay? That's literally the system in which that we are dealing with right now. So yeah, whatever the CPI is that's coming from the federal, it's a completely made up number. I mean, it's whatever it's this. Here you go. I mean, there's no there's no truth behind any of this stuff. It's just whether or not you choose to accept it for the reality that it may or may not be. Which kind of makes like the whole discussion kind of like almost obsolete, right? All right, filtered, spot on. Do your own research? That's it. I mean, that's really what you have to do. That's why I'm so stuck on the Federal Reserve speeches, is because that's the only thing. Like everything else is just like made up. I mean, including the Federal Reserve speeches. But at least in the speeches, they're not trying to address the people. They're addressing other bankers, other central bankers out there. That's like, I mean, how many times have you ever seen like the mainstream media come out and say, okay, in today's Fed speech, they were referring to these different things and these topics that you should be, no, it doesn't work like that. One of these Fed, governors or presidents gives a speech and then they interview them and then they take little tiny snippets out of that speech to give you the talking points that they want to, they want you to know about. But really the good information is buried back in those things and you have to go and read them in order to gather that stuff, because you'll never find it on a mainstream topic ever. Will they break those things down that far? All right. Do you think the auto loans will get hit instead of housing if we experience another? Yeah. Well, here's the thing, is that the auto loans. See, like I see a financial crisis type scenario in the auto loans. Like not so much in the real estate, but definitely in the automobiles. Like during the pandemic, everybody went out there and bought these new cars, but they didn't just buy new cars. They bought like new cars way more than what they manufacturer's suggested retail price was on them. Like they paid way too much for these things. So now they're sitting on not only on an asset that loses value the moment that you drive it off the lot, but then it's like really underwater on it after the real prices come back to it, after the artificially inflated prices, disappear. These people are going to be making payments on something that is not only dragging them down, but then is not even nearly worth what it should be. Like as far as like taking out a loan for something, they're going to stop making the payments on them. And you're going to find a lot of defaults. In fact, they're already occurring at a rate that was higher than prior to the pandemic for the younger generation. I posted a link on a video yesterday, the day before. So that's already starting to occur. Once it gets out of the younger generation and into, middle class people who are like, man, I don't, like, I could buy this exact same car or a car a year newer for cheaper than what I'm making the payments on this one for. You think you're going to want to continue making payments? I mean, that's not going to happen, right? You're going to end up like getting out of that thing, dump that thing. What time is it? A minute, or we'll see. Hour and a half into this. Okay. Love the duck story. Yeah, it's a good one. I love the duck story too. Okay, I agree. Auto loans are a problem. House is not. Yeah, I think it's going to be more of a problem. At least initially, it's going to be more of a problem. Okay, let's see here. You sell any roofing at your lumber yard? Yes, I do. What are you seeing for prices? Demand on that? I do sell roofing. As far as like the asphalt, like 3-tab architectural style roofing, we do sell quite a bit of that. But unfortunately, there's some suppliers of that do so much more volume that they're able to get the prices down and are a hell of a lot more competitive than what I can do it for. So I don't get as many roofing sales as I would like because of that. When it comes to metal, like barn metal, pole barn metal, type of stuff, that one, we do quite a bit of that kind of style. And I don't see the prices coming down as of yet, but I have a feeling they will be. From some of the talking, like I talked with a few of the metal guys, and their sales have dropped a little bit. Like they're not nearly as much as they were anticipating coming into the busy season, much of what like a lot of people are experiencing in the building industry. But they're not quite seeing that. And what I found funny was like every 3 months, the prices were going up, going up, going up. Well, they stopped. Like we got an announcement like, hey, in 2 months, you're going to get a price increase. Well, when that 2 months came and I was about ready to do an estimate for a customer. I wanted to know if that price increase was going to, occur this week or the following week, because I wanted to adjust the estimate to reflect that new price condition that was going to happen. So when I called up the metal company to say, hey, is this still accurate on the date for this price increase, the guy told me, hey, we're not going to do that price increase. They decided to postpone that. They're not going to do it now. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. So that was a couple of months back. I haven't seen the prices come down yet, but they're not going up. So, that's a sign, right? Okay, $1.99 from Jebediah. Thank you so much. Just wanted to give you money again. Thank you so much, man. I really do appreciate it. You guys are so generous and so supportive of the channel and everything that's going on here. I just can't thank you guys enough. I mean, 1,118 of you out here right now hanging out. We're trying to break this stuff down, figuring it all out, want to know what's going on in the lumber industry, what's going on in the housing industry, figuring out how this monetary policy is going to affect the economy. We're doing it, guys. I mean, thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. Let's see here. How will people believe Bitcoin is a true haven while food and fuel prices continue to rise? How will people believe Bitcoin is a true haven? Well, I guess they probably shouldn't see it as a true haven. I think that would probably not be the greatest position to be in. Now, I would, again, I think I've made it pretty clear on it that you should own some of this stuff and you should dollar cost average into it. But as far as like your main place to be, I wouldn't go all in on Bitcoin. I mean, some people are doing it. I'm not. I mean, I wouldn't go that way. And so they won't see that as a safe haven, especially if you are in desperate need of food and fuel. We already, like when we talked about a story about a gentleman who lived down in Cuba, and his family had gold prior to everything going bad in Cuba. The Russians were helping out with the economy. He talked about being in school and how they had these muffins that that would come into the school, and there were so many damn muffins at the school that they had these muffin wars. They would throw these muffins at each other. And then just a few years later, there was hardly any food or anything there, and everybody was just suffering big time because of it. And he talked about how his family had gold, and this gold was going to be held onto for survival purposes, just for this exact moment, when things got really bad. Well, here's the thing: things got really bad, and they were hungry. They got rid of their gold like that, so they could eat. It was gone. It didn't do them much good. Whether you're going to hold on to the bitter end with it and then try and take the most advantage of it, or are you going to eat? Because that's what it came down to, is have the gold or eat. And they decided to eat, and the gold was gone. So it didn't benefit them much, maybe for a few days. That's something to consider. Even when the hard times come, that it didn't help them. And so you got to be prepared for that kind of thought and in concept as well. All right. Okay, Euro and Asian bond. Is that the way to go? Euro and Asian bonds? No, I would not. I would not be involved in any debt market personally. I just feel that there's going to be a sovereign debt crisis, corporate debt crisis, and it's going to be massive. With that, there are going to be some nations and some corporations that their bonds are going to do very well. As people are dumping out of some, they're going to get into others. And while they're doing that, some are going to become very overvalued. I couldn't tell you which ones those are going to be. I have a feeling that people are probably going to, at some point, try to dive into the United States and use the United States as the safe haven. But there is so much bad, negative, news about the U.S. dollar and, the dollar destruction and stuff, that people are just so fearful about getting into the United States, it doesn't leave them a whole lot of places to go, which really leaves just gold, right? Or cryptocurrencies on a lesser extent. So it's going to be gold in the dollar. in the end. And then what happens after that? The dollar crashes. Who knows what happens with gold? Who knows what kind of digital system they set up? It's gonna be a tough scenario to go through. That's for sure. And I couldn't tell you like where the safe place to be is. But as far as bonds, I wouldn't trust them. I wouldn't trust them at all. That's me personally. Let's see here. Banks are buying BTC. Yeah, some of them are. It's happening. I mean, look at all the industries that are getting set up with around Bitcoin. It's huge. There's from the hedge funds out there to just the payment processors and stuff like that. It's not going away. It's getting bigger. Let's see here. Do you feel bad for all the young people who have lost their life savings in crypto because they listened to your advice? Well, they wouldn't have lost everything if they had listened to my advice, and I don't give advice, so therefore they couldn't have lost anything, right? I see some of them are thinking of ending their lives. I'm sorry for them. Yeah, I feel sorry for them too. They shouldn't have done that. Anybody who has ever contemplating ending their lives because of a financial decision that they had made, there's something deeper going on inside your head, and you need to seek out some therapy. You need to do something about that, because that's not the reason. Like, money is not the reason why you end your life, right? In fact, there's no reason for it. There's plenty of people here who are doing it, right? We're here. So don't take advice from some idiot on YouTube, right? That's not where advice comes from, right? You take information, you go and you process that with the other information that you get. I've said it plenty of times, right? This channel is not for investment purposes. We're here to have a discussion. You use this information with the other information that you get out there, and you come up with your own decisions that you make. When I suggest that you buy Bitcoin, I suggest you dollar cost average into it, and you never put any more in than you're willing to lose. I do $50 a week. That's a lot. That's a lot for me to put into Bitcoin. That's like the max for me. If you're putting in $50,000 in one shot into Bitcoin, you're nuts. Why would you do that? Does that make any sense at all? I'm gonna go and take a chance and drop 50 grand into Bitcoin right now. I mean, I can't even fathom that possibility. Alright, he's trolling you. I know he is. That's okay. It gives me a chance to mouth off about it. Okay, let's see here. Who told them to sell? That's a decision the owner of the asset has to make for themselves. Yeah. I mean, it is. And making a purchase is something that you have to make for yourself. I mean, taking a job, taking on a career, committing to a relationship, it's all a chance that you're gonna go into. And I mean, there's investments in all that stuff, and sometimes you get burned, and sometimes you are rewarded like heavenly. I mean, it's just like, it's all a chance, really. But you can take some like precautions going into it. You can step carefully into your decisions. All right. Who's that? Christina Smith? Thank you so much for the 5. UE, what is your ideal acreage amount for a house? I mean, I guess it depends. If you want like trees, or if you want like farmland, or if you want to develop. Like, to me, like, I've always had this idea that 10 acres seems like a good amount. Like, there seems like you could do a lot with 10 acres. And if you had 10 acres of trees, or 10 acres of farmland, or 10 acres of land that you can develop, that seems like a significant amount that you could really do something real with. So to me, like, I've always had my mind wrapped around 10 acres. I don't even have remotely close to that. I have like way less than that. But that, I mean, if there was a number on the size, that would be it. All right. Broker called yesterday. I think he got a memo to call and sue the clients. He sounded rather troubled compared to when he usually calls. Yeah, I would be too. I mean, I would be nervous as hell trying to be a financial advisor, telling people like, "Hey, no, let your money stay with me. I mean, no worries, we got you taken care of." I'd be, yeah, hell you do. All right. Do you think current lumber prices are good enough to value to build a home? If not, when do you recommend? Thank you. Okay. Lumber futures just hit 550 per thousand. Now, depending on your supplier of retail lumber and how big of a turnover they have, is going to really determine on how low or how quickly the prices go to. So if you are shopping at a lumber yard that has an incredibly high turnover, like they are rotating all their stock within a week or two, you're going to find prices at those lumber yards are going to be very cheap very quickly, and your window of opportunity is probably going to happen fairly quickly. Now, if you are shopping with a lumber yard that's a little bit more remote, then you're probably going to end up having like a month, 6 weeks. I mean, it really depends on their turnover, and that's when you're going to find that the window of opportunity is going to present itself. How long or how long that window of opportunity stays open is really going to depend on how long the futures stay down. Like if you see that it bounces off this 550 mark, this 560, and jumps back up to 8, 9, 1,000 per thousand again before the closing of the July contract, then you're probably not going to see a whole lot of cheap lumber in the system, and that you should probably pick it up here as quickly as you can once you see the retail prices do come out. Because for me, I haven't seen the retail prices drop yet. But it's only been a couple of weeks that the future prices have dropped. So it takes a while for all that new inventory to come into the system. But if you see the July contract close at 550 per thousand, you're going to have a summer full of cheap lumber to do your projects with. But it's going to be hard to say. We can't tell until it comes. All right, thank you very much, James, for the $4.99. Very much appreciated. Thanks, UE. This is the first time I've caught your live stream. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you so much. I used to start these live streams at around 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning, but I was looking at the analytics and I saw that a lot of people come to the channel around 1 o'clock, between, say, 12 and 2. So I got 1,000 people here watching right now, so it must work. I'm gonna do these live streams more towards the afternoon. Sam, thank you very much for the $5. Have you spoken about Project Hamilton? I haven't. In fact, I got to do some research into Project Hamilton so I can do a little bit more talking about that. But thank you very much for the $5, and I will do some research into that one. Thank you very much for the $9.99, Bashar. What do you think will happen with the world's strongest... I just lost connection. There we go. The Kuwaiti dinar. 1 dinar equals $3.23. If and when U.S. loses its U.S. reserve currency, will it remain the strongest currency? That's hard to say. And as far as when the U.S. loses its world reserve currency status, that is good. Like, a lot of people have this impression that it's on its way out, like it's dying now, like it's not gonna, like, here in a couple of years it won't have the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency. I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't see that happening, and I think that the world reserve currency will be the U.S. dollar in a couple of years. It's not going to last forever, right? I mean, it won't. There will be a time in which that it will fail. I just don't see it happening in the next year or two. Like, it's going to take time. And what I'm really looking for is something to actually take the place, like actually show up to say, hey, we are a contender as far as replacing the dollar in the world reserve currency status. Gold would totally work, right? I mean, it would totally work, but it are not on a gold standard. And there doesn't seem to be a banking system that is really intrigued in the idea of taking on gold as being the next world reserve currency. Could it happen? Sure. I mean, it could happen, but I just don't see it. I don't feel it, right? It doesn't look like it's going to go that way. I honestly think it's going to be moving more towards a digital currency. Now, if it is a digital currency that we move towards, it's going to be a digitizing of everything. All the commodities, all the sovereign debt, everything. It's going to be all on a digital distributed ledger, tokenizing, everything, right? And in that case, I don't know what the world reserve currency would look like. Would it be a basket of like many central bank digital currencies? Is there going to be like one worldwide central bank digital currency? Is it going to be the US dollar, just more of the Fed coin, and the Fed coin becomes the world reserve currency? There, we don't know. We have no idea about what it is that's going to take place here. I mean, a lot of people find that it's going to be XRP. They think XRP is going to be like the world reserve currency and the main currency for international banking transactions and stuff. I don't know. Like, I mean, I could see that being a possibility, but I don't know if that's actually going to be the case. Um, I I honestly feel that what we are probably going to end up with is a world dollar, a currency, a digital currency, world dollar based on something like an SDR style, where it's going to be a combination of many sovereign banks, the sovereign national currencies that are put into a central currency that is then used for international banking transactions. I think it's going to be something more similar to something like that. But then again, I don't know. Like, I mean, there's no guarantee of any of this stuff. Okay, Alexis, thank you so much for the $4.99. Speaking of suicide, what do you think of psychedelic industry? Because people are freaking out and drugs aren't working. The only thing I can really honestly say about the psychedelic industry is that here in the Pacific Northwest, we, come fall, the psilocybin mushrooms grow like crazy around here, and it's almost part of the culture up here. The mushrooms are, whether it's just the edible gourmet mushrooms or into the psychedelics, even microdosing. A lot of people are talking about this sort of thing. Here in the Pacific Northwest, mushrooms are very integrated into our society. Now, my personal beliefs when it comes to psilocybins, and I have to say I don't know anything about microdosing. Anything that I ever did was megadosing, and it was quite intense. And I never felt like positive after the experience. Like, I enjoyed the experience, like I thought it was a lot of fun, but I look back at it and I don't find that I gained anything like positive from that experience of it. But again, I wasn't trying to use it for a benefit. I was trying to get high, and that's that's not the same thing. But my personal experience is that I actually felt depressed after doing it. So, that's my personal belief. Let's see here. Is this an all men's chat? No, there's some women up in here. I think I have, like, according to the analytics, I have like 11% female viewership. So I really appreciate you ladies being here. Thank you. Mushrooms don't help. They made me freak out. Just work out and read. Yeah, I didn't freak out. I didn't freak out on them by any means. But I didn't micro. I mega. And so there's a huge difference inside of that. And that's maybe that's unfortunate for me. I just kind of got this preconceived notion on what I think they are and what they do. But other people, they talk the benefits of it, and I'm not discrediting any of that stuff. I mean, if it works for them, awesome. I mean, I'm not one to deny that. Woman here. Well, thank you, Gina. All right. UE, what is your go-to trusted news resource? I don't have one. I do not trust anybody. I really don't. What I do a lot of times is I will just scan for articles to read. So I'll just like kind of scan through headlines. And if I find an article I really like, I will try and find another article that talks about that same topic to see if the information is somewhat the same. And then not like mimicking, because a lot of times you will find like the exact same article posted excuse me, on many places across the internet. Excuse me. And that's not what I'm talking about. Like, what I'm talking about is two different opinions on a particular topic. And so I'll try and do something like that. I used to add a lot more YouTubers to the mix. So like I would find a topic, read about it, and then find out what another YouTuber had it for an opinion on it. When I do this, I kind of start developing my own opinions about what it is that I feel that is happening. Because every article is going to be biased, so you got to understand that they're trying to persuade you into a particular belief. And when you just follow one particular news outlet, you're going to fall into that belief. And so you have to follow like multiple angles in order to make sure that you're just not mimicking what it is that one source is. So I don't have a single source that I go to. I use my Google feed a lot, so I will punch particular articles into my Google feed and then hit the news link to see what articles come up. I have a lot sent to me. So a lot of the articles that I get are from the viewers. Like the viewers found it and said, "Hey man, I read this and I thought of you," and they send it to me. So I'll get a lot of information that way as well. But yeah, I don't have a particular news source that I go to. Federal Reserve documents, speeches, that is really telling. So if you read a couple of speeches and then research some of the stuff that they're talking about inside of those speeches, there's a lot of information you can get from that too, just from the Fed speeches and stuff. Thank you, Joe, for the $33. Very much appreciated. Very awesome. All right. Let's see here. Soil is very big issue that no one is talking about except Sandaguru. Where do you see the price of oil topping? Okay, well, so I'm thinking you're talking about the soil being a big issue is because of the fertilizers, and yeah, that is a big issue. And we are going to find where like the cost of farming, the input cost of farming is going to go up. This is going to add to the food cost. But at some point, that's going to end as well. And you're going to find that the availability of fertilizers is going to become more plentiful, and then the cost of farming is going to start coming down. Again, this is like the bullwhip effect kind of thing taking place, and it will happen in farming as well. Okay, where do I see oil prices topping out? That's, again, this is a hard one to try and like to answer, because there's no real way of like guessing on how high. I mean, it would just be like just an absolute guess. What, 170 a barrel? You know. The question I would have more for that one is like, at what point will people stop buying gas? Like, it's at $6, and I already know people who are cutting back on a lot of driving that they're doing. So at some point, when the gas prices get to a point where people stop buying gas and the oil production continues to try and take advantage of the high oil prices, but yet nobody's buying it, what happens? Bang, oversupply. Then you have, again, the bullwhip effect. Oversupply, undersupply, oversupply. I mean, it wasn't just, 2 years ago, we had negative futures. Negative priced futures in oil. And now we're at all-time, where, we moved up to close to, what was it, $150 is all-time high. So it happens. Like, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. In fact, I even said it that, when lumber futures were negative, I was just like, man, you should get into the oil industry right now. This is unbelievable. You can never get it so cheap. And people are like, oh man, oil crash, it's not coming back or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. But same thing. Like, you can see it with lumber. Like, lumber hit 1,700 per thousand. I'm like, there's very few people out there who are going to want to buy a 2x4/8 standard and better, which normally sells for $3. They're not going to want to pay $13 for it. I mean, you might sell a few of them, but you're not going to sell that many. And you didn't. And the inventory built up, and then the prices dropped. Right? People rushed into lumber, and then the prices started going back up again. So we're going to see this happen. It's going to be continuous for a while. This might take years to get through. Diamonds are the way to save your money in. When things go bad, you can easily carry your diamonds with you and hide the diamonds in body cavities if needed. I'd rather carry Bitcoin around in my head. I think it's easier to carry 64 digits, to memorize 64 digits, than it is to keister something. Personally, I'm just saying. I live right above the train station. Yeah, that sucks. Seriously, no, diamonds are worthless. Yeah, I'm not big into the precious stones. I mean, you can counter. I mean, they do like, what is it? Artificial diamonds and stones, and they grow them in labs now and stuff. I mean, I don't know why diamonds. I mean, diamonds are not impressive to me. All right. Gold is better than silver because you can fit more up your bum on international flights. What is with you people? Okay. I just drove through Columbia, Georgia yesterday. Shine on, you crazy diamond. Okay. Do we have any real questions? Jim, get out of here, man. Diamonds are stored in a warehouse to control its value. Fiat, yep. Diamonds were and are a marketing ploy. All right. What weighs more, a pound of, I guess that's sterling silver, or a pound of 18 karat gold? What weighs more or what's worth more? Hey, Joe, thank you very much for the $33. Bought a car. That's for the additional 33. You're so awesome. All right, bought a car today. Went to 3 lots and all cars were pre-sold. 10 plus cars on actual lot. All the cars were pre-sold until August. Found a car lot 40 minutes away that had a car we wanted. Why? Well, I'm just guessing it's probably because of the production shortage of vehicles, and that's probably going to continue here for a little while. At some point, like the interest rates are going to get so high on these cars that people are going to stop buying them. Now, I don't know when that's going to happen. With the shortage of vehicles that are out there, it's probably going to take some time for there to be enough production to actually bring the car prices down. Again, like with the things that we are seeing as far as production and input costs and shortages of things like these damn chips and stuff, the production of cars is probably going to take a little while comparative to like a TV or something like that. Um, so that's, I mean, you're probably going to end up seeing car prices staying elevated for at least the new cars for a little while. I think the only thing that would really upset that or change that kind of scenario as far as bringing more cars to the car lot is if we start seeing like the article we posted the other day talking about the younger generation going into defaults and or delinquencies and defaults on their new car loans. That's going to bring a lot of repossessed vehicles into the market, and hopefully that might bring some added inventory and supply to what's already a very tight automobile market. But I don't know, it's going to be a while, especially on cars. All right, what's up with the $33 super chats? Is that a magic number? Hey, 33 is a great number. I'm totally cool with it. What economic books can you recommend that we can relearn this subject again? I don't know. I don't really I wish I could give you a list, a library of like books that I have read so that, you know, you guys could go and read the same books that I've read, but I don't really read. I've read pretty much one book on economics. It was The Creature from Jekyll Island. I recommend that book for anybody who wants to try and understand the central banking system, or especially when it comes to the Federal Reserve, the creation of the Federal Reserve, what their intents are, and you know how it is that they still remain in operation. That book is really a must read for anybody who's wanting to understand the economy and the central banking system. After that, the only other thing that I really read with any kind of depth to it was the Cantillion's essay on economic theory, and he wrote that thing back in like the 1700s. So it's really out of date on a lot of the stuff that he's talking about, because he's talking about like villages and wagons and like distribution networks like that, not telephones and airplanes and stuff. So there's a lot of stuff inside of the essay that is really out of date, but some of the basic economic principles that are in that essay play out very much in today's environment. So I guess those would be the only two things I would really have that I have read that I could recommend, to anybody. I have started in on The Wealth of Nations, but that book is like 1,000 pages long, and for somebody who doesn't read, that it's way overwhelming. Um, but I started listening to audio, so I started the audio book on The Wealth of Nations, and I've listened to about an hour of that. Um, that's the only thing I really have to recommend. Where I picked it up is basically one piece at a time. I started off watching the news because I was really upset that I was losing my house and I was like pretty much losing everything I had. And so I'm watching the news to try and figure out why we're going into this great financial crisis and stuff. I mean, this is like 2000, late 2007, 2008. And I just remember I was sitting there watching the TV, watching CNBC, and the guy on the TV says something about mortgage-backed securities, MBS, and I turned off the TV. I just muted it, went over to my computer, and I typed in, what's a mortgage-backed security? And so I started reading up on it. I was just like, okay, so if you take all these mortgages and you put it into a box and you sold it off to an investor, that's like in a mortgage-backed security. I'm like, okay, well, I kind of get it. So I went back to the TV, fired it back up, and the next thing the guy says was credit default swap. So I paused the TV, I go back to my computer, what's a credit default swap? Realized that it was an insurance policy for these mortgage-backed securities, and then I got to thinking, it was like, oh, so when these things fail and the insurance policies kick in, and that's why AIG failed. And so I started like going that way, and then I just kept asking questions, and I just kept going looking for answers, and I just never stopped. And so like somebody says it's fractional reserve banking, and I'm like, what's fractional reserve banking? So I type that in there and start reading up on fractional reserve banking. It's just like, okay, so the bank has to keep 10% of the deposits on hand, and goes on and on. And you just keep doing that. It's boring. Like, there's no excitement in that whatsoever. And how it is that, you're supposed to sit down and just force yourself to take in this information, I don't know. Like, you have to have a curiosity for it that just drives you into it. Or, like, for my situation, I was just so mad. I was so mad. I was like, what's going on here? How come, like, I was living this decent life where I could go and hang out at the bar every day and do whatever I wanted, and now all of a sudden I'm losing everything I own? What the hell? And so having that going on really made me, like, question what is this? Why is this happening to me? And then how can I keep this from ever happening to me again? And that's what got me into it. I would listen to a lot of Peter Schiff in the early days. A lot of Peter Schiff. I mean, he was probably like, he was so excited and so animated and everything. Like, he just drove my curiosity. And so, listening to good economists, especially like, guys like Peter Schiff, who are very entertaining when they speak, that's a great way to get into economics and studying the different, aspects of it. What I did, I mean, I guess the only thing I could really suggest is do what I did. Like, if you hear something you don't know, like you hear it and you just totally don't understand what they just said, stop what you're doing, go to the computer, look it up, and then start gaining as much information about that particular topic as you can. And you're going to find that when you do this, you're going to start picking up other information, and then pretty soon, as you're watching CNBC, you're not sitting there wondering what the hell these people are talking about. You're absorbing this information and be able to process it and come up with your own opinions and ideas of what it is that these people are saying. I listen to the news now, and I'm not impressed with a lot of the knowledge. Like, I used to be like, holy moly, these people are so impressive with their knowledge and stuff, and like how they can talk. And now I realize when I listen to them, I'm like, you guys are a bunch of dipshits. You just talk complicated. You're not really saying much, And so when I come out here and I talk about economics on the higher, on the higher level, the macroeconomics level and stuff, I'm not afraid to go and speak with, people who I feel are on a higher level, because I already know that they really don't know that much. They just know a lot of like really long words. That's what it comes down to, All right, did I see another super chat up there? Gee whiz, you guys are just loading me up today. I can't believe it. I was supposed to go home, but you guys are making this so much fun, I don't want to stop. Joe, man, you are on it today. Thank you so much. Gee whiz. Okay. I took advantage of the churn in value of the old car. I do not want to mess with the part shortage in the future much. 33, 66, 99 are great numbers. Well, I totally agree. That's one of the things that I don't like about driving my old vehicles is that if you drive an old vehicle like I do, you have to have two of them because you never know when one of them isn't going to work. So you always have to have a backup. And in fact, I'm always got my mind out and looking for another backup. So if there's another $500 or $600 car that comes up for sale and it's a decent running vehicle, I might just buy it because I know like one of the two vehicles that I have may not start tomorrow and you need a backup. Always have a backup. So I agree with that as far as having a new car that is much more reliable than driving an old POS like I do. But if you drive the old POS, you need two of them so that you can have a backup. Thanks again, Joe. That is very generous of you. I really do appreciate this. All right. And Joe again with the 99. My gosh, man. Last one to complete the circle. Well, you're awesome, man. Thank you. Do you think uranium has the potential to take off? I think all commodities have a potential to take off. I mean, I really do. And then when you come to some of the, some of the industrial metals or things that are of absolute necessities, like copper, like watch copper. Copper is a really good indicator of what's happening inside of industrial, like anything industrial, car production, home production. Copper is a very good signifier of all that industry because it's such a high demand kind of product for that. But uranium, yeah, I mean, what I would be most concerned going into the future is going to be sovereign debt, zombie corporate debt, and luxury items. Those are like the three things that I would be most concerned about because I feel that going into the future, those things are going to be of the most critical state. Things like energy is going to continue to stay up. Food is going to continue to stay up. But luxury items, people are not going to be as concerned about that. And the debt crisis is going to be huge. People are going to feel a lot of pain coming from the debt, from a downturn in the debt markets, especially when it comes to sovereign debt and the zombie corporations within them, because people are just not like. You can see a country going bankrupt, but then when you have like country after country after country, that's going to be bad. That's like there's nobody coming to help. That is systemic collapse of the system. So that concerns me on a higher level. Watching a sovereign debt crisis and the corporate debt crisis taking place. That's going to be the biggest issues. And then after that, it's all going to be on a digital basis, I feel. So I keep saying that over and over again, but it's the way I feel. Man. I saw another one come up here. There it is. Joe? My dude. Really? When he thought he was done. I really am now. I have to tuck my daughter into bed now. Good night. Bro. Thank you so much, man. I don't know what to say. That's an incredible, generous amount of donations you've done to the channel here, and I just don't know what to say, man. That is incredible. Thank you, man. All right. Is Italy gonna blow up the euro? I don't know, man. Like, it's hard to say, like, what it is that any individual nation is going to do to the rest of the system. I mean, you got to think, Italy is just one nation inside of a bunch of them inside of the Eurozone. So, like, can one nation destroy it all, or can the rest of them support it? I mean, I think, like, if one nation has an issue, no problem. But if multiple nations within that Eurozone start to have issues, no, you can't. Like, how many bailouts can you do? How much leveraging into the future are you going to do? Eventually this gets to the point where the future says, man, I'm just not going to do this anymore and we're not going to pay. So I don't know. Like, I don't know if Italy can just, like, in itself take it out. You know? All right. I don't like digital money. It's a way of the government to control you. It very well could be. Uh, Joe, props you, bless you. Yes, lumberjack landlord. I totally agree, man. Long time watcher, first time live chatter. Thanks for all you do. Oops, where'd you go? And not just using big words and talking complicated. Yeah, well, I appreciate it. You know, I mean, I you know, a lot of people say, man, I really appreciate all the hard work, and I don't find this work. Like, to me, this isn't work. This is something that I really enjoy doing, and if I found it to be work, I wouldn't think of it as a job. Like, I just don't. I feel like I would probably, I feel like I would do this no matter what. I may not be as, like, I may not be as present as I am, like, present as I am right now if I wasn't getting paid. But then again, I have to question that, because I really do enjoy being out here. So I may, like, even if I wasn't getting paid to do any of this stuff or getting the super chats, I really do think I would be out here hanging out with you guys and talking. I mean, I enjoy doing this, you know. How many others are buying oil stocks today on these dips? I don't know. I would be a little concerned buying into oil. Like, again, something like we were saying earlier. In fact, you can go and see some of the articles, demand destruction taking place because of the high gas prices. If there is high gas prices and you're less likely to buy gas to go traveling, then you're not going to be out there at the stores or the restaurants or spending money out there. That's less economic activity happening throughout the rest of the economy, not just what's happening in oil. So I honestly think that the high oil prices and gas prices are going to slow the economy way down, and you're going to see the prices come out as well. Thank you, Makeshift Player, for the super sticker and the $5. Very much appreciated. Very cool. Very informative. Thank you. Yeah, well, you're welcome, guys. I appreciate it that you guys hang out with me. Ooh, that was fast. Okay, what happens in equity markets and sovereign debt crisis? Okay, I don't know. I don't think we ever had a sovereign debt crisis to kind of understand what would happen inside of the stock markets or the equity markets. I don't know. Like, here, like, I would assume that people who have debts to pay, like, if you don't own your property outright, then you're going to have to pay those things. And if you own stocks, you're going to sell them to pay it. So if there's a sovereign debt crisis, I would imagine that everybody's going to sell out of everything that they have and try to get into a physical possession of some sort. I think that equity market would crash. I think the stock market would crash and the sovereign debt market would crash right along with it. I don't know. I guess I could be wrong on that, but that's what I think would happen. UE, what other coins do you invest in besides Bitcoin? I do buy a little bit of altcoins occasionally. Not much. Like, usually it's $50 worth. And I will just pick up, like, something that I might have seen in the news or something like that. I don't really put much faith into any of the altcoins out there, although some of them are going to do quite well. We just don't know which one of them is going to be, like, you know, the Amazons of the world. We just don't know. With that being said, I bought heavily into Litecoin. I think Litecoin is an excellent altcoin to get into. Mainly because I really like Charlie Lee. I know a lot of people give him a hard time because he sold out all his Litecoin when it hit its all-time high, but he still works on his project, right? He still wants to see Litecoin succeed. So he, in my opinion, is very honest when it comes to the progression of his project and really wants to see it grow and be successful. So I put my faith in behind Charlie Lee, not so much the coin itself. But then again, I didn't really buy that much of it. I mean, I bought into it. Mainly, I hold Bitcoin. That's like my main position. I do own a little bit of Uniswap. And that came because literally an old man who knows nothing of cryptocurrencies came up to me one day and says, "Hey, I own some Uniswap." And I'm like, "What? Like, how did you end up with Uniswap? You know, how did you end up with this token?" And he goes into how he has this internet access, and somehow the purchasing of this internet access was done through a cryptocurrency or something. I wasn't real quite familiar with it, but he got an airdrop of a bunch of Uniswap and ended up with thousands of dollars worth of this coin. So I thought, you know, real world case. So I went out and bought some. So Uniswap, I own a little bit of Uniswap, Litecoin, Bitcoin, and then Ethereum. I own a little bit of Bitcoin Cash, and then a few altcoins like Chainlink and a few, you know, just a few other ones. I don't know. Like I own a bunch of them, but I don't own like a lot of money in any particular one. Okay. Can Man, thank you so much for the $4.99. What inspired the ethics consequences of moral obligation video earlier this week? It was the realest video on YouTube until today. So you really like that ethics one, huh? It was spawned from a thought that I was having. It came from a conversation, and talking about like. So I don't want to get too deep into this, into what sparked it, just because it's so personal. But ultimately, it came from a conversation that I was having with somebody, and the first half and the second half of that video were kind of two different things. The second half of the video was really like an observation that I was having, looking out there in the world and concerned for my own, and where I'm headed to. Because, you know, there was a time in my life I didn't, you know, I just show up for my job, but I spent most of my time just hanging out at home and messing around on a hobby farm and doing that. I made this commitment to get out of debt, and I wasn't sure how it was that I was going to get out of debt. And so when I found a way, and pretty much it was this YouTube channel, and I realized, oh man, there's a product here, and there's a possibility. And so I started pushing that possibility, and what ended up happening is I started spending a lot of time focusing in on the YouTube channel and making videos and trying to absorb as much knowledge as I could so that I could come out on these videos and be entertaining. And had you seen like the original videos that I had put out, or my attempt to make these videos, I would spend hours, like literally hours, out in the car trying to form the words, trying to come up with the idea of what it was that I was trying to say in these videos. And so I ended up spending a lot of time building this channel up, to the point that I missed out on a lot of stuff. And so when I started like reflecting on that, and I started looking around at some of the successful people that I know that don't seem to have like the most happy life going on, like, you know, I don't see them smiling all the time, and they don't always seem to be like in this great mood, even though like they seem to have it going on. Like, you know, it seems like they have all this stuff, you know, and have all the things, and like the appearance seems like they should be happy, but they're not. And so it got me questioning what happened there, what's going on. And as I started to reflect onto my own life, and then looking out there at the rest of the world, I realized that a lot of times what ends up happening is that an individual gets so focused in on the success of like acquiring money or building a business for the idea of establishing stability for their family, that they miss out on paying attention to their family. And next thing you know, they look back and they realize that they missed everything. And the family isn't necessarily appreciative of everything that, they had done, building up this life and working so hard for everything they had done. And the family isn't necessarily appreciative of that. And it's not because they didn't appreciate all the hard work that went into it. What they don't appreciate is that you were missing the entire time, that you weren't there, and that the success doesn't really matter if you weren't there, like if you weren't present. And so you can you can sacrifice all your time and effort and energy and everything into creating this stability for your family, only to find that it was all for naught. And so that's, it was that reflection onto that. That's what really, sparked that video. Anyway, it goes a little deeper than that, but I think that's probably enough to hopefully, give you guys the idea of what happened there. All right. Have you ever seen the Thrive documentary? I haven't. I probably should. Thanks. Yeah, no problem, Cam, man. You're welcome. Nice one. Have to remember that. Yeah. It's funny. There's a lot of things that you don't like. I always had these I hate to say it, like, I don't have money. Like, I'm not sitting on hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars or something like that. But I have more money now than I have ever had in my life. And that's it. And it's weird. You don't look at the world the same way, and you don't act the same way, and people don't treat you the same way. In like everything changes when this happens. And so it makes me wonder, like, because it's like newfound for me. Like, I've lived miserably in debt and drunk my whole life. So most of my adult life. So like being sober and not in debt and having like an income and having like, a channel where you can get $800 in super chats, like, this is like so overwhelming. Like, I don't even know like how is it that I'm supposed to react to this, because it's like, it's like such a, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like, unbelievable. It's really what it is. And so like trying to understand what it is that I'm supposed to do with my life and be like humble about it, and then, be cautious and be aware and be present and all this stuff at the same time, seeing that there is a possibility that I could really make this thing just go huge, knowing that there could be some real heavy consequences from doing that. You got to take this stuff into consideration. I do. I mean, I really do. Yeah, laws of attraction. Laws of attraction. People will argue with me on that one. I am a firm believer in the laws of attraction, and it's not just the laws of attraction. It's not just like this magical thing that happens. I used to think that it was energy within you, like the energy that we were talking about, as far as like the positive energy that you put out there is going to be reflected back in. If you put it out there, you'll get that same reflection back. I used to think of like the laws of attraction a lot like that. You put this energy out there and it'll find that energy and bring it back to you, but it's not. The laws of attraction is more of a subconscious thing. It's the way you think. And I learned this from the magic of thinking big, right? Or Think and Grow Rich. That's what it was. Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich is what is really what's it got me thinking about that, is that it's all in the subconscious. Is that if you are constantly thinking of progress, and you're constantly thinking of achievement, and you're constantly thinking of things that are like starting businesses and stuff like that, what ends up happening is that the conversations that you have and the things that you do throughout your life, even if you're not consciously aware that you're doing it, subconsciously, your conversations with people will start leading you towards those things that you are thinking about. So you have to remember that. You have to constantly think big and think positively in order to have your subconscious go out there and reach out and grab those things that you need and bring them back to you. It totally works, but you have to have faith that it does work, right? It's a lot like a religion. So you do have to believe that it works, for one, and then two, you have to practice it. You have to do it. So without those two things going on, you'll never be able to see it, and it'll never work for you. But the laws of attraction definitely work, and it's a real thing. Lumberjack landlord. I'm a landlord and work a W-2. My kids spend time every weekend going to properties and seeing people working hard and seeing that we appreciate our contractors and tenants. They will have a real life. And yes, Lumberjack Landlord, that's the thing that I really appreciate about him and his channel, is that the honesty that he really carries within himself, and the feelings, like the connection that he has with his tenants. Like, he cares about them. He cares that they have a place to be, and that they are, you know, progressing through life. Like, he encourages them to find their own properties, like to get out of renting and get into ownership. Like, this is what he encourages his own tenants to do. You know, he's a great guy. Let's see here. I don't blame the boomers. They were just born before gold-backed currency became fiat. Yeah, that's true. Oh, wow, TMC, thank you so much. Holy moly, you guys are great. Hello from Dallas. Love the car chats in the rain. So true, trying to strike a balance of family and building wealth. Yeah, it's the real deal. I mean, it's a real. You know what it comes down to is that if you're going to do something like this, where you're going to like pursue something beyond belief, right? You're going to go and start a business that's going to be huge. You're going to, you know, do whatever. There's going to be sacrifices to be made, and those sacrifices are going to be major. And I tell you, you might be with the person that you absolutely love, and they love you to, you know, and in every you know, ounce of your being, right? But if you're not prepared to deal with that, like that high performance that somebody's about ready to go into, if you're not ready to understand that there's going to be a loss of emotional connection because of that, you can only focus in on one thing at a time. Like, you can drop that focus for a minute and try and pick something else up, but it can only last for so long, and then you're gonna have to pick it back up again and run with it. And with that, there's gonna be sacrifices that are gonna have to come from that. And it's not necessarily something you want to do. I mean, it might be, you know, and if you do it, go for it with all your force, but, you know, don't expect to have your cake and eat it too. It doesn't quite work like that. At least, I mean, it could. I mean, I shouldn't say it doesn't, you know, because some people could probably pull it off just fine. But for the most people, you're going to find one or the other. You're going to either be very successful and screw up your social life, your family life, or you can really focus in on your family and social life, but you're probably not going to be nearly as successful as you could be. Like I said, you could probably pull off both, but most likely something is going to have to be sacrificed. Regular Foot, thank you so much for the $3 sticker. I very much appreciate it. You guys are so awesome. I'm going to hang out for probably about another 20 minutes at most, and then I'm going to have to bail out and go. My kids are probably already out of school, so let's see here. Sorry, Simon, can't like it twice. Oh, that's okay, man. Liking it once is good enough, man. I really appreciate it. Every dollar counts now. Diversify, take care of your health, produce your own food if possible, avoid excess of what you don't need to survive, and appreciate the simple things in life. That's very much it. You know, and that's, you know, I think I was watching Jordan B. Peterson the other day, and I think he actually kind of commented something on this, and I didn't quite get everything that he had said inside of this video, but if I remember right, it was something like, if you are pushing to acquire more than beyond what you're needed for your bills, you are going to sacrifice, like you're sacrificing your family. If I remember right, it was something like that. I don't want to quote him because he has so much good stuff that he has said. I don't want to like misrepresent it, but it was something of that nature. Like, you gotta really be concerned about what it is that you're pursuing after you have paid your bills, because there's another life out there that you might need to be focusing in on. All right. You said sober. Were you a drunk in the past? Yes, I was. Pretty, pretty heavily too. Like I drink every day. Like, yeah, I don't like there was. Um, the most embarrassing part of drinking was the incredibly high mountain of beer cans that I had behind the garage. Like, it was sad. Like, I went back there and I looked and I saw like all these beer cans, and I thought to myself, man, that was a lot of money. That was a lot of money that got dumped into all that beer. And I didn't want to deal with these cans because it was so embarrassing and just so heartbreaking to see this. I actually told this little tweaker girl, I was just like, hey, there's a bunch of cans up behind this garage, you can have them. And she thought she was in heaven. I mean, she went up there and her eyes were like this big, and she's like, oh, she was like, just scored a mountain of gold. And so she took all those cans out from behind the garage and then proceeded to take everything else that I had around the garage too. So anyway, that didn't work out too well for me. Anyway, yeah, I was a pretty heavy drunk at one time. Let's see here. Did anyone see Top Gun? No, I want to go see that though. So don't say anything. I don't wanna. I don't wanna know anything about the movie. How long sober now? 6 years. I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember the last time I had a drink. Like, I just gave up one day. I didn't have a plan. There wasn't an event. There wasn't anything. Like, just one day I was just pissed and I just said, that's it. I'm not doing that anymore. And I can't remember when that was. I just did. I just stopped. And I didn't go about it the right way. Sorry to turn this into an AA meeting, but anyway, I didn't go about it the right way as far as quitting goes. If you are going to give up alcohol after years of drinking like I did, I really, really, really recommend you attend the meetings, some rooms, go and find people to speak with and to talk, because the problem is that I got very angry and I started building up a lot of resent, and that is not healthy to deal with. And especially like with me, who is somebody who will sit there and spin on it for a long time, I started getting very aggravated with people who had anything to do with alcohol. Like, somebody might have a beer with their lunch, right? No big deal. Like, you have a beer with your burger at lunch, it's not a big deal. And I could smell the beer on their breath, and I would just get like, why are you here doing business with me? Kind of like, I wouldn't be that direct with them, but I would be very irritated inside. And I would think to myself, it was just like, wait a minute here. It's not their problem, bro. This is your problem. Okay? And by having an attitude like this, you are just making it more difficult for you to go through this recovery. That was just one of the major issues, one of a lot of issues that I had to deal with, especially when it came to like just my personal thoughts and emotions and stuff. When you give up drinking, like, when I quit drinking, I thought, man, the world is going to be so awesome, because it's miserable right now when you're in the middle of a drunk. But when you quit drinking, like, the whole world is going to shine, and it's going to be like winning the lottery. It's going to be so awesome, right? And so you quit drinking and your mind doesn't quite think right, but then you start to sober up and you start thinking clearly because you've been in this alcohol-based consciousness for years, right? So now you sober up and you realize life sucks. Life sucks bad. And I liked drinking because I didn't have to think about life, right? And so now, not only are you sober, but then you realize that life sucks, right? So now you're not even drunk to cover it up. That's another issue. Right? So if you're gonna quit drinking, you gotta go through it the right way, or else you're gonna spend years with resent and trying to deal with the emotional battlings and the anxieties and all the other crap that goes with it. It would just be easier just to say, "Hello, my name is Simon. I'm an alcoholic," right? And then everybody says, "Hello, Simon," right? And so that's how you should really go about it. If you don't, then you're going to have to suffer through it like I did, right? And it's hard. It's really difficult to do that. All right, Jeremiah, thank you very much for the $5. Appreciate your economic analysis. Your call on the dollar strength over the year and a half ago was spot on. Yeah, I thank you. Thank you very much. And it's hard to be one of the few people who's going to say, hey, guess what? Even though you're seeing all this inflation and dollar destruction, the dollar is actually going to get stronger on a world scale. I know it's hard to believe it, but that's what's going to happen. And then have everybody call you crazy and unsubscribe from your channel because they think you're nuts. But then it happens, right? Thank goodness. Well, I didn't guess this. This is truly what I believe. I am not going, I'm going to flip a coin and maybe this will happen. I truly believe the things that I say. And when I say that I fear deflation being the bigger concern coming from the Federal Reserve, that is truly what I believe. I don't think they're concerned about inflation. I think they are very happy with the inflation scenario that is happening right now. So, anyway, however it's spelled, you guys and gals get it. All right, Coinbase is down over 80% from its 52-week high in price. Yeah, the stock is. I'm thinking about buying in on some of that stuff. I had purchased some when it first became available, and I can't remember what I had bought it at, but I didn't buy very much, like $50 worth. And then a few months later, I bought another $50 worth. So, I'm a little bit into Coinbase, but it's down and I'm not too stressed out about it. But 80% down, yeah, now would be the time to start dollar cost averaging into some of that stuff. And I think Coinbase is going to be a payment processor of cryptos that's on the on the higher end of as far as popularity goes. I think it's going to be one of the more used companies. Excuse me. Let's see here. I'm also happy with the current inflation. Deflation and recession is gonna suck so hard. Yeah, it is. UE. A few days ago, I read this Reddit article. Strippers say a recession is guaranteed because the strip clubs are suddenly empty. This is true. Pulse on the economy. I don't know if you're joking or not, but that's actually a pretty good indicator of economics or the economic condition. If there is a lot of money flowing and people are feeling good, they go down to that strip club and throw them strippers a lot of money. If the strippers are saying, hey, we're having a hard time here, and there's a slowdown taking place, there is a major impact happening. That's a major indicator. I would like to hear what. Too bad there wasn't a stripper index you could go to see what the stripper industry is doing. All right, throw dollars at the gas pump. Not joking. You explained it well. All right. Go and love your family. Yeah, absolutely. It's what it is. I used to spend. I don't do it as much as I did, but there was a time when I spent pretty much every waking hour scrolling for articles and reading stuff, looking for the next video to make. I look back and it took a lot. It took I was able to pull off a lot too. I was able to get us all out of debt and get the student loans taken care of, the credit cards, and buy a house. There was a lot of stuff I was able to do, but it was tough. It was tough on the family, and there's some consequences from it. There's something about underwear too. People buy less underwear in a recession. That is true. Men's underwear is an economic recession indicator. It's hard to believe that, but that's actually that's a true statement. And that when there is less money to be had out there, men's underwear sales drops dramatically. It's kind of one of those funny indicators out there, but it's true. And yeah, that's one of them to watch. I'm home. Thanks for keeping me company on the bus. Hey, well, thank you guys for hanging out with us. I've been taking my kids to all the local parks for years, and I am noticing they're getting a lot more packed. I think everyone's staying home this summer. You shouldn't wear underwear. Why not? You're not working today. No, I have today off, so I'm not working today. What? I have been waiting for the silver underwear price to drop. Silver underwear. That would be interesting. Don't they make silver underwear to like like for bacterial purposes so they don't stink? Like you could fart in your underwear and it's okay? I'm just kidding. All right. You should make a commitment to paying off your mortgage. I made a commitment to pay off my house in 10 years and was able to pay off my mortgage within 6. That's really interesting because I had thought about that too. And I have a 3.25, it's like 3.12% interest rate on my mortgage, which is really low. And I was always kind of under the impression, or at least that was always my mindset, is that there is no better investment than to get yourself out of debt. So if you can get out of debt, that's like the best investment you can do. Especially if you have like a high interest debt, like a credit card, because you would have to invest into something that would not only like have a return that was beyond that of your interest payment, but the idea that you're going to be able to acquire that much and still be profitable after you pay taxes just wasn't seemed like a very plausible idea. So you just pay off your debts. Well, when you have a mortgage at 3.25 or 3.12 and inflation is running at 8%, the idea of paying off your mortgage early doesn't really make a lot of sense, because the purchasing power that you're losing to paying off your mortgage, as opposed to just buying items now that you would lose going into the future. Does that make sense? Because like basically you could take that extra money and pay off your mortgage, or you could take that extra money and buy something now and save the money that you're going to have to spend going into the future because of the higher price of inflation. Does that make sense? So like basically spend your money now on the items that you need, save the inflation that's going to come from it, and don't worry about paying off your mortgage early because the interest rate is so low. I don't know if I explained all that right. So anyway, with that being said, I don't know if I'm going to pay off my mortgage early. I think I'd rather try to invest into something that's going to be beyond that 3.25% interest that I'm paying, because that would make more sense to do with the capital as opposed to getting out of debt. But anyway, I don't know if I made sense saying all that. All right. Moron paid his mortgage. You know, that's funny that you say that, Jim, because my friend who owns quite a few rental properties, like a lot of them, laughed at me when she said, "You're making principal payments? You sucker. I'm going to have 2 properties paid for by the time you get yours paid for." Or something like that. She said something of such natures. And I guess what she does is interest-only loans, buys these properties, they're rental properties. I don't know exactly what she does, but I'm assuming it's something like that. Makes interest-only payments on these things and lets the value of the properties go up. So really, I don't think she does anything out of pocket. I think the rent pays all the mortgage payments and she just takes the equity out when it goes up in value. Like, I'm not exactly sure how she does it, but she has a lot of properties. I should really, ask her how she does hers. This means I can now build a clubhouse for my kids. Glad I freeball. Going commando. Let's see here. What time is it? 2:53. All right, I'm going to give it another 7 minutes, and I'm going to have to head home. All right. Bad decision, especially considering his age. Dark brother, I wonder what they were talking about. Don't forget to have health insurance. My retired friend ended up losing his paid-off house because he retired without health insurance and suffered a stroke and 2 heart attacks. Yeah, that's actually... that's a very similar story to somebody else that I had known. Their grandmother became very ill and ended up doing like a reverse mortgage on their house or something so that they could take care of these medical payments, and ended up losing the house or something to it. I can't remember exactly the story behind it all, but it started off with a medical condition. I remember that. Evening, Simon. Great talk as always. Well, thank you, Glenn. I really appreciate that. Just go home now. Who cares what the time is? It's raining and your family wants you. All right. Dan, I really appreciate it. Thank you. And I will be heading home here in just a few minutes. Can you go over the contract as currency topic? Can you go over the contract as currency's topic? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Cam, man. I'm misunderstanding the question. I'm not sure what you're asking there. But yes, I will. Whatever the if I can figure out what the question is that you really want to know. Can you go over the contract as currency topic? Are we talking about like maybe the euro dollar thing? Everyone discounts hundreds of thousands of interest you pay over the life of the mortgage. Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like people will say, I've heard people say that before. Like, I bought the house for 100 grand and then I sold it for 200 grand. And it was just like, okay, well, how much maintenance, taxes, and interest payments, insurance, interest, and taxes, and all that other stuff that you make into this house? Are you considering any of that? And most people just like they set that aside. They're like, no, we don't worry about any of that stuff. It's just like, well, you got to kind of incorporate that into the input cost. Let's see here. As a shadow, the contracts as a shadow currency. Yeah, and so that's like, really, if you guys want to dive in deep into that one, there's two guys out there who just do a excellent job talking about this system. Jeff Snyder, just amazing, right? And then the other one is Brent Johnson, and Brent Johnson has the dollar milkshake theory, and this is excellent. This is really where, okay, yeah, I'm really gonna have to go. I'm down to 15% power on my phone, so I only have a few minutes left here, but this is really where like a lot of people have like lost the idea of how much demand for the dollar really exists in the world and how much the dollar is used as a world reserve currency that's beyond just what the central bank knows about. So here you have like the central bank, the United States Central Bank, the Federal Reserve. They print up the US dollar. This ends up being the world reserve currency. And now as the world reserve currency, you have to do two things. One, you have to provide the world with the currency, and two, you have to have a debt market that's big enough to provide a safe and liquid asset like the US Treasury. So that's something that like nations around the world are not necessarily willing to do. It's the reason why the United States is able to have the world reserve currency is because they're willing to take on these two things. Right? Deficit trading, where they are willing to buy more goods than they sell in order to supply the world with the dollars. And then two, they go deep into debt in order to create enough treasuries for the world to have as a safe and liquid asset. So that's what the world is using for the world reserve currency. But something else takes place out there, and that is contracts are written in US dollars. So take, for example, you got Russia, who has written bonds that are due in US dollars. They borrowed in US dollars and they're due in US dollars. But they're not the only ones. Corporations like Evergrande in China, or China themselves, Sri Lanka, other nations have all written contracts that are due in US dollars. And so now these contracts, when they're written in US dollars, right? So they borrowed in these US dollars and they're due in US dollars, but now they have a contract that is due in US dollars. It's an IOU. This IOU can get used like currency. So somebody might come to you and say, hey man, I want to buy this particular thing or whatever. I don't have any cash, but I do have this IOU that is due in US dollars. Can I spend that? And then person on the other end may or may not accept it, but a lot of times they will because it's due in US dollars and they want the US dollars from it. So here, this contract has nothing to do with the United States, the central bank, nothing to do with any American corporations or anything else, is due in US dollars and gets transacted as if it was US dollars. Now, if you can imagine around the world, hundreds of thousands of millions, billions, trillions of dollars worth of these things, and nobody knows quite how big it is. Now, if there ever came a day when these contracts, people wanted to get out of them completely, like I do not want to have this contract, I don't want to owe in dollars, I don't want to be owed in dollars, I just want completely out of it. The demand for dollars in order to get out of that contract can be way bigger than anybody ever realized, even the Federal Reserve. Makes me wonder if the Federal Reserve could even print at a pace that is fast enough to cover all that debt. And if that starts going into default, where you have massive amounts of these things that are no longer viable contracts, You can imagine how much demand for dollars could exist when you consider how many of these things are sitting on people's portfolios. I mean, think about this for a minute. There is a huge demand for dollars that nobody even knows exists out there. Like, they know it exists, but they don't know how big, and they don't know where it's at, and like what kind of contagion effect can come from something like this. That's a very serious situation that is brewing right now, and you can see some of the effects of it by just watching Russia and Sri Lanka and Evergrande and some of the other nations that have written these contracts in US dollars. This is happening. All right, thanks for the question. That was an excellent way to end this video. Uneducated Economist, you guys are so awesome. 700 of you, 1,269 likes, almost $1,000 in super chats. Are you kidding me? Just amazing. You guys are just absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know.